Hey, my name is Lemuel David Lee Jr. I am the host and founder of the 5-Minute Startup, and I just wanted to start out by telling you thank you for spending this time with us. My promise to you is that this is here to help you jumpstart your journey and take action as soon as possible while giving you clear steps on what the next things are to do. Obviously, no one has all the answers, but I am bringing the best people from all over the world who are actually creating businesses, growing businesses, investing and buying businesses as well today. The point is, you will get what's working, what's not working in current form, so you can take these lessons and you can apply them to what you're doing. Anytime that there's an idea, a question, any sort of issue that you're interested in solving, please comment in the comment section as well as contact us, as this is all about you. And we are more than happy to tailor things to make sure that our community is getting what they need. So again, thank you greatly for joining. I look forward to seeing you in the episode at one of our live events. And even those who join our community, we look forward to having you there as well. Again, thank you. Have a great day and enjoy the show.
First rule for every entrepreneur is revenue in first position. There is no balance. Balance will cause all kinds of havoc and suffering. Only take feedback from 5 people. This is the biggest difference between people who struggle and suffer and people who don't. Take this book, take off the cover. This is the cover jacket. You don't
like, subscribe. Welcome back to the Founders Talk series, brought to you by the 5-Minute Startup, where we bring deep insights from founders building their vision brick by brick. No fluff and no BS. Each episode is packed with actionable tips, time-saving strategies, and entrepreneurial grit that you need to jumpstart your own journey. I'm your host, Lemuel David Lee Jr., an experienced business builder who has spent a total of a decade elbow to elbow with founders building their multi-million-dollar companies from day one. In this episode, we're joined by entrepreneur, board member, coaching expert, and founder of Wholesaling Inc, Tom Krol. Tom has started, built, and sold many businesses, and some which he even retains board seats on today. Some have made millions and some have sold for millions. He believes that coaching and coaches should start by reading every day, measure their net worth every week, and measure their students' results every month. Also, Tom is retained by some of the most successful coaches and consultants operating businesses today. He influences their decisions and guides their actions with a student-first methodology using the generous, expert, and go-giver approach. So starting out segment 1, and we're going to talk about Tom and his background. So welcome to the show, Tom. How are you doing today?
Brother, I am doing great. I'm happy to be alive. Right before I was here, we live on a little, we'll call it a lake, but it's really just a retention. It's really a puddle in the middle of my backyard, but we'll call it a lake. And there's beautiful birds. And I saw this white egret flying over and there was the I mean, it's awesome. I'm happy to be alive. I've got a lot to be grateful for, and I'm honored to be on this podcast with you. We're going to have a great adventure today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for joining. You know, obviously, I've been following you for years. I'm sure a lot of the audience has been following you at least for a decade. You've done a lot of great things. You've impacted people all over the world, including myself. So I have to start out by thanking you from the bottom of my heart, honestly. So I just wanted to mention that before we jump into things. And for the rest of the people who don't know you already that are in the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and like, where are you from and what makes Tom Krol who he is today?
Sure. I mean, what I'll do is I'll just say this for anyone who's listening, so I don't waste their time. Same story as every entrepreneur, right? It was a struggle. You picked a struggle story and the origin story that you want to apply to yourself for yours, right? If you're listening, but it was the same as most entrepreneurs. My wife and I were broke. We had my son Logan, and while we were in college, I had to start working right away. That got me kicked out of the small Christian college I was in, and we had a great adventure. I went to work. I hated it. I was totally broke, paycheck to paycheck, the same story that everyone has, right? And then I got into my early 30s, and I was fired from a job, and I just said enough. And I submitted to my older brother, who, even though we're very competitive, I submitted to his instruction. And I just started doing things differently. I just started following the old ancient rules of business and money. And I had to drop my ego, and everything worked out really great. At least so far, it's doing, I'm getting much better results than I was when I was struggling. So I'm from New York, went to college, got booted for having Logan. Logan was here last night. We had an early Thanksgiving because of different family scheduling things. So we had an early Thanksgiving, and
nice.
Even though we're not supposed to time a podcast, right? But but we had an early Thanksgiving, and Logan was here. He's now in medical school, and he's doing great. We went to his white coat ceremony the other day, where we got to see him put on a white coat at medical school, which is pretty cool. And
congratulations.
Yeah, it's life is good, or at least I would say I'm more able to more effectively deal with how life works in the right way. So it's been a great adventure.
I love that. I noticed you said I've been able to more effectively deal with life and the things that come along with it. You have to be super proud of him. Just thinking about his progress, and he's actually doing his white coat ceremony. So I have several family members that did that. So I do get the magnitude of that. Congratulations to you. Absolutely. You. Okay, so you had him, left college, got to work, had some struggles, but ultimately you got that key piece of advice from your brother, it sounds like. And once you started actually implementing this ancient knowledge, I love that term there, because the reality is, we're not really doing anything that hasn't been done before. There may be some technology added on top of it, but these are ancient pieces of wisdom and things of that nature. So I really want to hear more about that. So it sounds like you started in real estate once you started working. That kind of became one of your first ventures, and that's where I know you from personally. But can you kind of tell us about that phase there,
Sure.
and then kind of how you transitioned to doing just general business, and then basically now having Coaching Inc., which we're excited to hear about today as well.
So sure. I mean, I think real estate was my first, real significant adventure into business. Mm-hmm. And I think real estate's great. Real estate is a really great investment. Real estate is a really great way to make a lot of money in a short amount of time. I was in the investor side, not on the agent side. So there's a little, for any listener here who's just wondering, real estate agents make more money when the seller sells for more. Real estate investors make more money when the seller sells for less. So they're similar. They're in the same sector, right? Like electricians and plumbers, right? But they're both in utilities, but they're in different parts of it. So I was on the investor side, and I loved it. And as soon as I started following some rules on how to do it right, I had success right away, or I would say I was able to generate a profit very, very quickly. And then once I did that, and I had that epiphany or that aha moment of like, this is the way life works. Then I just did it again and again and again and again. It was great. And that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And then I started to realize that real estate investing, I came into it the way a lot of real estate investors do, right? They all envision it. Now I've coached thousands and thousands of real estate investors, and I could say they all kind of start for the most part with this idea of like, I want to live on the beach, put my feet in the sand on my laptop and manage investment, single family homes from my computer and make passive income, right? Well, yeah. What you learn very quickly is there's no such thing as passive income in that. Now, there are some things in real estate investing that are a business, but for the most part, real estate investing is a really phenomenal job or a really great investment, but it's difficult to call it a business. And once I started to have people come up to me and say, hey, I want to learn how to become a real estate investor, that's when I realized that the business of coaching, consulting, mentoring, that is an actual business in the sense of it can grow, scale, and sell without you. Whereas sub 2 people and landlords and rehabbers and wholesalers and on, arbitrage and, the installment method and every single other little tactic in the middle, sandwich lease purchase options. All of that is really something that is a job. And some people will argue with me on that, and that's okay. It's not, I'm not going to die on that hill, but I have just found for myself personally, coaching is a business. So I think if you know something, you should teach something. I think that there's really no excuse. If you want to really master your craft, coaching is a great way to do it. And that to teaching other people how to do what you're good at is a really powerful way to really become a master craftsman at that thing that you're doing. Right. At least it was for me. So I love it. It was an awesome journey to go from real estate to coaching and then on to other things. But yeah, real estate is the best way to, I think real estate, if you're really struggling financially, if you hit rock bottom and you're ready to just go all in on something, I think there's nothing better than real estate because the barrier of entry is so low. You can just start, immediately and have a result in really, really short order, within a month. I mean, you could change your whole financial trajectory in about 30 days.
Right. Yeah. And I can attest to that. My first deal I did, it was based off of mailers, and it was based off of a podcast that I listened to you, and I actually took the leap of faith and actually started doing it. Yep. And so I got that first deal, actually did it, sold it, seller finance to someone else for more. And yeah, that's how I got my first deal done, and went on to do, dozens after that. So yeah, thank you for explaining that. I'm sure the crowd and everyone is interested in what you just said, because we do have people who are struggling, who want to get their first thing going, whether that's real estate to get their first, few $100,000 or first $1 million. But the reality is, again, I own real estate. I've been a landlord. I've been a wholesaler. I've been an agent as well. So I've done all these different things, and I can confirm they're all jobs, at least my experience. Yeah. And I've even managed real estate and owned single family properties from overseas as well. And believe me, it's not passive. And it could be just how I did it. I could have made a bunch of mistakes, and I'm sure there's better ways to do things, but that's my personal experience. So I want to second everything you just said, as this is golden knowledge for people, so they can look down range and see what their life is going to look like, and so they can make decisions with that in mind. Awesome. So you transitioned. So you transitioned to coaching, and you got involved in different businesses and things like that. But I want to hear how your experience from, for example, Wholesaling Inc. and your development of your coaching there, how that influenced what you do today. I know you have a whole slew of wisdom and rules and things, and if any of those apply, we can start there, but feel free to kind of go into some of that knowledge that you have, because it's just so much that you have there, as I've been listening to you for years.
Yeah, David, I mean, I would say this, brother, my none of this comes from me. Mm-hmm. I have just found these, or been given these by my mentors, and they're tried and true. There's nothing new under the sun. The old rules, the ancient rules, that's what I implemented in order to have my success or wealth. And, I guess we should start this maybe by a little bit of a different way, because a lot of people throw these terms wealth and success around, right? And I think there's a lot of, I don't know what that means exactly. So here's what I would say is my definition of what I've come up with to define what we're all really after here. I think that what I have found is that wealth is an external comparison to other people. For instance, on this call right now, either you have more money, health, transportation, mobility, friends, network than I do, or I have more than you do, right? So in order for me to be rich or wealthy, I have to have $10 and you have to have $1. Right. I think wealth is external. It's a comparison. It means that the wealthy person in any given situation will always have more options and better options than the less wealthy person. Right. So there's like a divide. Mm-hmm. I think success is almost, I don't want to say polar opposite, but maybe like a yin and yang thing. Mm-hmm. Success is an internal comparison to my ideals. Mm-hmm. So on this call, I don't know who's more successful, right? You might be whistling all day with a big smile and feeling the same way inside and have everything that you feel like you need, right? Some of the happiest people I know are the people who have enough. And some of the unhappiest people I know are the people who don't have enough. So I think success it's something inside of you compared to a comparison between where you are now and where you want to be. And it's very difficult to compare success between people. Most entrepreneurs, I find, their definition of success is some variation of a good night's sleep, right? So there's no one I've ever met who said, man, I want to get into business so that I can be up all night riddled with fear and anxiety and depression, right? And
Right.
So I think that it's important, as we kind of discuss this, what we're after. There is a difference. There is a difference between wealth and success. And certainly for most people, some component of wealth is in their definition of success, right? They define that by a goal or some sort of security or a paid off house or whatever, a savings account, a number, or net worth. But I think it's important to discuss that. And what I would say is, yeah, we can get into some of the things I started. I mean, I could tell you one of the biggest transitions I made when I was really struggling to even getting started earlier in real estate was reading. Reading, and I have a whole bunch of rules. I've got 88 rules, but rule number 8 for me is read 8 pages a day. This was the thing that I saw. And then it's one of those things that once you see it, you really can't unsee it. And,
Right.
But yeah, there was reading, and there's others. I mean, there's 88 of them. I'm happy to go through all of them with you, but, or at least half of them. I don't know how much time we have, but they're all based on 3,000 years of recorded history of the men and women of consequence who came before us, laying this out, even back to the Stoics of Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and these men and women who just say, hey, and the Bible, a lot of it's biblical. I love some of my favorite books are like Daniel Lapin is one of my favorite authors. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go through those, but that's really what I think my journey has come down to is submitting, getting rid of my ego, not being worried about silly things like my legacy, and just really submitting to some of the ancient principles that have been at play before I was born, while I'm alive, long after I'm gone, they'll all still be here.
Okay. And so your 88 principles, has this been something that you've kind of amalgamated or you've kind of gathered throughout your time? Or was this something that you kind of found all in like one season? You know how they say you have seasons in life, for example. Was it kind of like a seasonal thing where you were pursuing that, asking you shall find, and that was your focus? Or was that like a long-term journey that you kind of developed based off your experience?
A lot of pain and suffering and a very slow journey.
Nice.
And, I think that a lot of people talk about generational wealth.
Right.
And I know that if you look at families who have just succession after succession after generation of every single person in the family is happy and well adjusted and doing well and doing the right thing, and they're of good character, and they have the capacity and the character, and they have impulse control, and they have consistency, and they have the ability to do things. That's generational wealth, not how money is the least of the things that generational wealth has to do with. And what I have found is that people who know these principles and implement them over time, a lot of people are born, when someone says, well, they're born with a silver spoon. I don't know if it's a silver spoon, but there's certainly an advantage to having a mom and dad around who know some of these principles. And then the people like me who have to kind of learn them. Not that my mom and dad were great. I mean, I had a great upbringing, but I think that generational wealth is, giving your kids good character, capability, impulse control, good character, just the thing we know. Right. And the ability to implement these things. You want to have generational wealth, right? Take your kids to a garage sale on Saturday, have them negotiate the price of a toy, and then teach them how to put it on eBay, right? That's generational wealth, not leaving them, right? By the time you and I die, we're going to be in our 40s and 50s. Our kids will be in their 40s and 50s. Right. If they haven't made it by then, and we live them a lump sum of money, that's going to just make whatever problems they have 10 times worse. Right.
So it's almost if the actual generational wealth is the actual knowledge, right? More than anything else, right? Because that's being passed down. And it makes sense if you think about ancient history, how everything was basically passed down via word of mouth, via families, and via tribes. So you can see how all this information kind of comes together. So you said that you went through a lot of pain and things like that in order to get here. Now, when this was all about those lessons and that knowledge. So you had had good parents. Sounds like you had some good guidance from your brother as well. But for people who don't necessarily have that situation, because there's a lot of people who are just struggling and they feel alone. They don't have mentors. They don't have friends that are interested in real estate or business, and they kind of feel like they're on an island. What would you recommend to someone like that who basically is going through those pains that you're taught that you've gone through, and they're looking for their next move? And again, they have no resources, and that's where they're starting.
Well, first of all, you have to really make sure you don't have a fear of success. I've coached thousands of people now, and I can tell you that I don't really find people have a fear of failure. I find that a lot of people have a fear of success, and we could spend the 2 hours discussing what that means. But the bottom line is, you just have to know who you are, how powerful you really are, that you're made in His image, that you can really do amazing things, and you have to have a strong concept. One of the things that we teach our clients is that the number one predictor of success for an entrepreneur is their ability to handle pressure. And I think just realizing your own capability and not having, facing that and just saying, hey, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to put myself out there. My friend Scott Alexander from the book Rhinoceros Success likes to say, it's like a rhino, right? You're a cow on the farm and you like the safety and consistency of the farm, but you got to break the fence and go out into the jungle. And when you do that, you will get hit with torpedoes. You absolutely will. And you have to have a thick skin. You got to keep charging. You got to focus more on fewer things. And you got to, follow some of the ancient principles. But putting yourself out there is first. If you don't have any resources at all, the very, very first thing that you should do is you should start reading, and you should stop hanging out with the wrong people. A lot of times people will ask me, well, Tom, your network, how did you get this network? I was into my very early 30s when I changed. And before that, I didn't know anyone. I mean, I knew all the wrong people. And I had to make a lot of changes. And I was trying to reach the first people, but the good people who are getting the results that you want to get, they're not going to spend time with you. If I pick up your phone and it's loaded, like all of your buddies are sending you inappropriate texts of like memes all day that are really something you wouldn't show, your rabbi or priest or, whoever, wherever you go, right. Or your wife or husband. So I think you have to really limit your exposure. If you think you can be different people in front of different groups of people, I will tell you that will lead to a lot of suffering. You can't do that. You've got to make that decision internally, and then you have got to limit your exposure to the wrong people. And we all know who the wrong people are. And if you think you could go spend time with them and they don't rub off on you, that's like going swimming and trying not to get wet. It's not possible, right? So if you really want to get the right people in your life, first of all, pick up the habit of reading, number one. Number two is stop hanging out with the wrong people. And that will be the first step towards attracting the right people. And by the way, the right people are easy. They're easy to get a hold of. Even if you have no resources, if they see they have that you have that contagious enthusiasm about life and business in your eyes, and you're doing the right thing, these people are just as friendly and accessible and available as the wrong people. It's just, where do you feel comfortable, right? Because if you feel like, I can go over there and I can hang out with those people, and when you're hanging out with the wrong people, you shouldn't feel that comfortable. You should feel a little uncomfortable, like, hey, I don't really feel that. People should be saying like, oh, relax, what's the matter, man? No, don't relax. Go with the right people.
Right. No, that makes sense. And so there's a correlation there with getting in the right rooms with the right people and having the right conversations. You have to build that foundation, right? Because when you read those books and things, you're probably talking to the people who've read those same books. So there you go. You now have a background and a conversational piece that gets you right in there, and you actually can have a real, true, visceral conversation. Brother,
can I just say one thing about that? Because that is the most true. I had a client. He was a student, and he was a popular guy, and he was going to lunch with Robert Kiyosaki in Manhattan from Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I actually have the very, very first book that it's always right by my side. It's nice. It's right here. He wrote all in it, and he explained the whole entire concept in the book for me. Right.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm sitting there at Delmonico's. We're eating lunch at Delmonico's in Manhattan. And it's my client who's was a buddy of mine and is a buddy of mine. And and Robert. And Robert and I start discussing the book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, or Mickey Singer, who lives in Gainesville, Florida. And he starts discussing this. Well, I had read this book and I knew it. I knew it like I know the back of my hand, right?
Right.
And because of that, I mean, to your point, exactly to your point, this is the way the universe works. He says to me, I have this little tiny group book study that I do every 6 months in Scottsdale, Arizona. Why don't you come? And I learned that just the meeting, spending time with Robert, and then with his connections, some people, especially from Agora Financial, that meeting literally changed the entire trajectory of my life. I mean, it has impacted and influenced almost. It was like, you ever see that thing where you have a decision, right? And it's like, and then something happens and then everything else. It was exactly like that. And just by doing exactly what you said is, yes, those right people, they hear you, they can hear the words you use, your vernacular, your tone, your volume, how you speak, what you speak about. It changes your mind. Your brain creates neurological connections, neurons connect that haven't connected before. So anyway, phenomenal. You're 100% right.
That's I think that is definitely good foundational advice to get people started. And I want to reiterate, it may sound simple and rudimentary, but this is very powerful. Whether you want to go and do sales for someone who you want them to become your mentor. Well, if you learn to speak their language, you'll probably be able to speak the language of their clients as well. That's probably a prerequisite to get there. And so, these are some really good rules and really good, as you said, ancient rules that you're mentioning here. So what I'd like to do is, you mentioned the pain that you went through, and we talked about that. And the second segment actually is the pain and the solution. So I'll quickly introduce the second segment from here. In this segment, we talk about the pain and the solution. So we're specifically looking into issues that are happening today in the industry and how we as a people can solve them. So you have an entire construct of 88 rules that you've built, and it seems like it addresses all these solutions. Could you talk about, let's see, as up to 20, as long as you're willing to talk about it, we're all here to listen, because this is heavy hitting stuff here. So could you start telling us a little bit about some of the rules and kind of how they've applied to your life?
Absolutely. And I'll go through them for anyone who's listening. There's nothing for sale. I will just be a servant to you guys. And I assure you that, sometimes when I hear a piece of advice or somebody says something, I always, hold it up to the light. And I ask myself a lot of questions about the advice that I get or the feedback I get. One of the things that that will ring true with everything that I'm about to go through is that its inverse is also equally, you can see the negative of it, meaning that sometimes when you see a person who is having a lot of success, the reason that we can get confused or we might get off track is that it is sometimes difficult to see the exact path or methodology or strategy that they're implementing, or it seems a little too complicated. But what is often easy to do is to see the inverse of that advice, meaning, do you find any commonality when people don't implement this advice? And I would challenge all of your listeners and you guys or anybody who's listening that if you don't just take this stuff on its face value. This is stuff that has been true for me, but hold it up to the light, trust but verify, and make sure you ask yourself some questions like, hey, have I noticed that when I do this, I have success? And more importantly, when I don't do it, do I not experience wealth and success? And I think that you'll find on all of these rules or guidelines or these, what I would describe as almost like we're all out in the choppy waters and this is like a lighthouse that can bring us safely into port. You will notice that these things will all be a blessing, not a burden. They will have, and there's an immediacy to these rules, and they're pretty much in order. So if you're listening and you say, hey, so we can start going through them, and I'll go through them right now if you like, and we could start with one, and you could stop me whenever you ring the bell or whatever.
Let's go. And I'll ask some questions, some follow-up questions about them, because to dive deeper if that's needed. Yes. But let's run it. You've You're the best. You have
no. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. So here's what I would say. So I'll go through them exactly like I go through my clients, and some of them are going to sound. Some of them you'll know, and some of them will kind of be a little unique. And I'll explain a few of them. But first rule for every entrepreneur is revenue in first position. This is the absolute number one rule in business. Now, people will sometimes challenge me and they'll say, well, Tom, what about people over profits or what? No, because revenue is compensation for you using your talents to take care of other people. That's what business is. Business is, you hear this so often about people will say, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah, that's pretty true. If you do what you love, you ain't going to have a lot of work. Right now, you'll have pleasure, right? You'll be like the amateur, right? The love part, right? You'll have that. But I have often found that it is not good to monetize things that you love. If you love doing something, just go do it. Build a business that provides you with the money and time for you to do the things that you love when you want to do them, with who you want to do them with. But a business is not about us. A business is about other people. And revenue is a good indicator that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I have seen people get caught up in this. They're always preparing to make revenue or about to, or they'll build it first. Something I teach coaches is don't follow the BS method. Don't build it and then try to sell it. Sell it and then let them build it. A lot of people will use the comfort of preparation, and they will not produce revenue for days, weeks, months, quarters, years, because some of my clients are very, very wealthy. They're worth many millions of dollars, and they'll just, so not logo design, not picking a company name, not finding a .com, not finding an office, not buying a conference table, not, God forbid, picking out brand colors, right? All of this stuff, right? No. Preparation can be a form of procrastination. Use your talents to go make money today. Tell somebody what you do. If they pay you, they're a customer. And then bust your hiney fulfilling and over-delivering when people pay you their hard-earned money. Bust your hiney finding the solution that fits their need and then replicate it. Revenue in first position. That is the job of an entrepreneur. And if you say, well, is that true? Here's what I would do. You want to have unhappy customers and low customer satisfaction? Take the revenue out of a company and see how long until the customers turn on the owner. And it's only going to be a second, because revenue is that's what is showing you that you're out there in the marketplace providing people, putting smiles on people's faces, is that they're paying you. So get to revenue in first position. That's rule number one.
Awesome. Yeah, that's such a good rule. And I think it's really good to prime people, especially if they're someone who's starting to get business experience, because people have all these things in their head about, like people over profits, like you mentioned, and things of that nature. But it's critical to realize that when it comes to a business, which is your system, almost like a living, breathing thing that you're building, that is the blood of that thing that you're building and of that system. Right. So without that revenue, your system dies, and therefore all your work dies and the value from that work. So that's really, really awesome. And the way that Gary V puts it, Gary Vaynerchuk, which is another guy who's everyone knows and is pretty much everywhere when you go online, that revenue that you make, that's the scoreboard. So thinking of it in that positive light, it allows us to reframe, because that's a big thing, getting that mentality correct behind this and doing things for the right reasons in the right ways. So that's awesome, Tom. We appreciate that. So what, with respects to that rule, that being number one, what would be your next most important rule? Or like you say, these are kind of in order. So what would number two sound like?
So this is so important for so many people who are starting out, is they compare themselves to everyone else, right? So you bring up Gary Vee. So people see Gary Vee now and they're like, it's going to be so long and Gary Vee is so good. And I don't even, I actually shared a journal entry I made the other day online, and it said, I don't know if I should go into the coaching. This is when I was going from real estate to coaching. So it's about over a decade ago. And I wrote in my journal entry, I said, I don't know if I should go into coaching real estate because Sean Terry already coaches it and he's doing such a great job. Like, I don't even know if I'm relevant. I'm going to make it. The second rule in business that fights for the first spot is I want you to understand that everyone, me, myself included, David, Gary V, is full of you know what. So no matter how good we make it look, Gary V does he make a lot of money? Yes. I'm sure he presents as a person, who makes a lot of money. He certainly wants me to believe, right, and the general public to believe that he makes a lot of money and he's successful. Good, right? I have no problem with anybody, and whatever is out there, great. Just know in the back of your mind, trust but verify, and don't compare yourself to anybody because everyone is full of poop. Right? Everyone, including Gary V, because you may not want to switch places with Gary V. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking of comparing yourself to Gary V and that's what's preventing you from stopping, Gary V, I remember him coming up, right, through all of these social media platforms. I have never, maybe with the exception of my good buddy Pace Morby, who's actually hosting tomorrow's support call for Coaching Inc.
Nice.
I don't know anybody who works harder than Gary V. This guy was everywhere all at once, writing books, YouTube, all over social media, working, traveling. I have a beautiful wife who I've been married to for 25 years this month. I've got 5 children, Logan, Lacey, Lily, Lucas, and Levi. I've got Luna behind me, my dog. I don't want to work as much as Gary Vee works. I don't want it, right? So I think what you have to do is you have to understand whoever you see online, on stages, especially people who benefit from your attention financially, which is pretty much everyone, right? Because I wouldn't be doing this if I don't benefit financially. So always, whatever you think people are worth, or whatever you say, oh man, that guy, he must be worth 20 million, cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And then you're probably somewhere close to the actual net value. Now, one of the benefits I get in my position is a lot of my private clients are very, very popular people online, very popular. Some of them have, enormous audiences, but I get to see all their P&Ls. So I'm telling you with verified information, take a deep breath, relax, you're doing great. And always remember, everyone's full of poop, and it's not your job to call them out. There's no benefit to calling them out. You have a huge plank, right? And I have a huge plank in my eye, and me focusing on your splinter in your eye only makes the plank in my eye way bigger. So calm down. Don't beat yourself up. You're doing way better than you think, and you're doing pretty well comparatively to everyone else financially. So take a chill pill, and everyone's full of poop, and just incorporate that as the second rule. And it won't make you so tense and nervous around these regular people who just, the only difference between one of them and the other is one makes content and one doesn't. One's a consumer, one's a creator. That's the only difference.
Right. Yeah. No, that's wise words. It kind of alludes to what you said earlier about essentially, you can paraphrase it, you should be competing with yourself and not with everyone else, right? And as long as you always keep that in mind, that'd be a good way to stop the slip of starting to look at everyone else's Instagram and what they're doing, or looking at this person's their scoreboard and saying, oh, well, they made this amount of money, they must be better than me. And then internalizing that leads to depression and all the issues that we see people, especially Gen Z and millennials, dealing with nowadays, right? That's good. There's some practical application there, but then there's also that psychological portion that really is the forefront of everything. That's wise words there. Appreciate that. Your next one would be rule number 3. We'll say this is the third rule we're bringing up now. Tell us a little bit about that.
So easy. Never stop doing what works. This is one of the biggest things that I see in businesses all the time. And we can go through these more rapidly, but here's what I would tell you. One of the things that you want to focus on is when you have found, I cannot tell you how many conversations I have with students and clients and consulting clients, they will have done something. They will have made a lot of money. And then they'll just say, oh, well, it was just serendipitous. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Or it was a referral, so I can't repeat that. It was like a coincidence. No. There's no coincidence. Whatever you're doing, especially when you come into, my program or someone else's program, I don't care who those people are. You never stop doing what works. You want to make a lot of extra money here right now, go back, look at your numbers, your data, not your drama for the last 18 months. Find things that you've done that actually we call it OAC, owner's actual compensation, meaning the money went from the business to your pocket. See where those things were and repeat them. That's it.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
This is easy. Be childlike in your approach. That's number 3. Number 4, Can I just keep going?
Yes. Yep. Go ahead.
Number 4, guys, your chances of making it in business are slim. Look at the stats of entrepreneurs, especially within a 5-year period. Most people go out of business, the majority. If you want to put the final nail in the coffin, break this rule, and this is never partner when you can hire. This is causing so much suffering in our industry. This whole idea of like, well, I'm not really good at this, and David's not really good at that, and I'm really good at this, and David's good at that, or vice versa, or whatever they say, is a lie. It doesn't work. And this whole like we're so close, we're actually like brothers, and we've been friends since we've been kindergarten, so it's a 50-50. No. I'm known in the industry for breaking up partnerships. I love to, because they're usually unhealthy. Now, I'm not against all partnerships. David, you and I had something we wanted to do a joint venture together, and you said, hey, and you said you're doing something. I said, hey, listen, I will give you $25,000 so you have marketing money. I'll also continue to give you $25,000 at 3%, of a loan. Plus, I want 8% equity, and I want $2 for every sale you make in perpetuity. And you can't hire me. And now I'll give you access to my network, and I'll give you one 45-minute call a month. That's a partnership. Great.
Right.
I love it. But this whole 50-50, then the spouses start talking to the husbands about who's putting in more, or the wives, the husbands start talking to the wives about who's working more. No. It's almost a guarantee is going to cause more suffering if you get a partnership. Is there exceptions to the rule? Yes. But even with those, if you really unpack them, those people would have been successful anyway. So don't give up half your revenue.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And so for the people who are kind of starting out and they don't necessarily have a lot of resources to hire, there's some creative ways of getting that done still. Could you give any advice to them? Because I know a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do. So
when I started Wholesaling Inc., first of all, the first hire you should make is an executive assistant, right? So as soon as you get to $8,000 per month, you hire a full-time EA, local, college educated, bookkeeping experience, already has a job. By the way, anybody you hire, they have to already be working. This is a rule. Actually, we'll go through it. Okay. But you just hire a local EA, and because you can afford to, so you can get to $8,000 to $10,000 by yourself per month. Very easy to do. If you can't do that, don't worry about you're going to struggle in business. So if you can't get to 8 to 10K per month in gross revenue, total income, right, per month, it's business may not be for you, especially if you've been trying for. That's okay. Who cares, right? So if you then say, hey, listen, I want to start hiring people that I can't afford, by the way, that EA, that your bump should go up, your income should go up about $15,000 by the 4th month. So if it hasn't, you made the wrong hire. Got it. Let's just say you want to bring on a really good marketing person, not agency, person. If you want to bring on a marketing person, but you can't afford it, what I did when I was making about these are rough numbers because it's over a decade ago. But when I was at Wholesaling Inc., I was making about $80,000 a year, or I was on track to make about $80K in a year. I couldn't afford the marketing guy. I gave him a $3,000 a month draw, and then 8% of net income that he would add to the company, something like that. So be creative, think outside of the box. It's business. You could structure deals however you want to, but and full time. And there's a lot to talk about. Make sure you have full. It's one of the rules actually, but we'll talk about it. Okay. Yeah, perfect. That's a really good solution. So as he just said, there's more than one way to actually get this done. Be creative, find that hire. You don't necessarily need to partner with that hire. Good words. So does that sound like fundraising at times, like that structure that you basically brought up earlier, where the person will give $25,000 for like marketing money and things of that nature? Or what are your thoughts on that? Yeah. So I mean, here's what I would say. Most businesses, every business I've ever run did not require any cash to get started. Okay. So especially the coaching and consulting business, I don't really believe in like venture capitals and things like that. I think the coaching and consulting, it should be income funded, meaning I could buy whatever I want as long as the company makes the money first. But a lot of the stuff I teach is all organic marketing. I don't really believe in paid marketing as much.
Okay. No, that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you for that. The way he's starting, like for people out here who want to bootstrap, that is going to actually allow your unit economics, like we talk about, to be on point to where all you have to do is close that deal and that pays for the next customer. So keeping that in mind. Awesome. So let's move forward, because I know you have a lot of rules and we want to make sure we can get to as many as possible.
This is a big one. Rule number 5.
Okay.
Only take feedback from 5 people. This is one of the biggest difference between people who struggle and suffer and people who don't. People who suffer will take feedback from literally anyone and everyone. You will see it. Once I see this, you won't be able to unsee it. They will literally have a conversation with anybody and get advice, even if the person is totally, completely unable to help them. The people that, now, again, you can, a lot of people argue with me on this rule. Fine, whatever. They'll say things like, they'll say different things, but here's what I'm going to say. As far as my household is concerned, my wife and myself and our 5 children, we only take feedback from 5 people. You want to give me your opinion about something I'm doing? Great. You got to be in one of these 5 groups. It's either it's the people who love you, pay you, you pay, regulate my industry, or are already where I want to be. If you are not in that group, thank you very much, but I'm not interested in your opinion. So that's it. It's love you, pay, regulate your industry, and are already where you want to be. If it's not one of those 5 people, I'm not going to listen to them, because I understand that their energy and perspective can actually alter mine incorrectly. So I put a lot of weight into the people I speak to, into their opinion, and I want to make sure it's the right people. So that's rule number 5. Take it for what you want. I know some people argue with me about it. Fine. I'm not. It's this. That's how I run my household. And also, the reason I was suffering before is because I wasn't following that rule. And I would have a problem or an issue or a challenge or a pain or a goal, and I would just have verbal diarrhea and talk, and it would just keep getting bigger and bigger in my mind, and I was getting differentiating opinions. You know what I found? People who have went before me and are already where I want to be, they asked more questions about my problem before they gave me advice.
Got it.
And that's one of the telltale signs that you're talking to the right person. The person who doesn't know, they jump to an answer right away. Hey, have you tried this? You haven't even finished your sentence, and they'll start recommending. People who are where you want to be, they slow down and they listen and they get to the root, and then they start to help you with not even advice, really more experience share. They'll preface their sentences with, hey, Tom, what I have found that worked for me, instead of, do this. So pay attention to these things because they cause suffering. Rule number 6, when everyone's part-time, the project fails. I see this so often. This is why it's a top 10 rule. Wow. Someone will come to me and they'll say, I'm starting this other thing, and it's, I got this opportunity, or there's going to be like 3 big or 4 guys or girls, right, with popular names. They're like, how could it fail? It fails because the only question you have to ask an entrepreneur is, hey, on that ABC project that you're working on, that new LLC, who's the one full-time person that's doing it? Like, that's their full compensation, first thing they think about when they wake up, last thing before bed. So if you have anything in your life right now, a project, an LLC, whatever it is, either dedicate one person to it full time. It's their only thing. Not, Sally's going to do it as soon as she wraps up this other. No. Full time or kill it. I'm telling you, I will save you a ton of suffering if you follow that rule. Make sense?
Yeah. Full time or kill it. Bam.
Full time or kill it. Just one person. That's it. You don't have to but one person this is their only thing. Rule number 7 is, rule number 7 is distractions make money. That's why they're distracting. Yeah. This is a big one because a lot of people will justify the revenue that comes in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this. I'll just say this. Just understand that the best distractions come disguised as opportunities. They will absolutely make money. And if making money is that's like the level 1, like the lowest form of entrepreneurship is like just the ability to make some money. You could trade your time and energy for cash. Fine, but just understand if you just do a lifetime of that, it's a hamster wheel and you're moving and moving and moving. You're not progressing. That's what a hamster wheel is. That's how you get burnout. So just realize, just ask yourself this question: is what I'm doing congruent with my overall end goal? And if the answer is no, don't let cash make that decision. Just don't do it. And you'll have exponential result and more cash by focusing more on fewer things.
Awesome.
Easy. My favorite rule is rule number 8.
Mm.
This is my favorite rule. You want to radically change your whole life immediately. Read 8 pages a day. If you think you can't read, now look, I understand there are some people who literally they cannot read a word. I understand that. That's different. You have to go get training, or maybe you just literally cannot read. But if you can read street signs, you can learn how to read a book. Mm-hmm. Not Audible. There's nothing wrong with Audible. I love Audible, but Audible does not replace reading. All of the great men and women of society for thousands of years, all of them read. All of them. There is not an exception. There's not a dissenting opinion to this. It literally changes your brain. If you get tired when you read, try standing up. If you lose your place, keep reading. If you have poor vocabulary or poor recall, keep reading. It'll get better. 8 pages. Do you want me to show you how I read a book?
Yeah, I would love to.
I will teach your audience a trick. I am telling you, this is a trick that if you guys do this, because I'm a very, very slow reader. I still am today, but I read and read and read, and you will be amazed how many pages, how many books you can get through. And it's not speed reading. I'll show you. Here's my next book. So this is the next book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Nice.
Okay, so I was on what's his name? Steve Trang from REI Disruptors. He recommended this book to me, and so have several other people. Yep. I'll show you how I can read this book so quick. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do this, guys. All right, here's what to do. Ready? Take this book, take off the cover, right? This is the cover jacket. You don't need it. It's garbage. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Next thing you do, go through the book, go to chapter 1. Here. Well, next thing you do, take the book, rip off the cover. You don't need the cover. It's garbage. Okay. Now you have the regular book right here. Okay, what you do is go to chapter 1. Mm-hmm. Here's chapter 1. The index, the dedication, the acknowledgement, it's garbage. You don't need this. Take this, throw it out. It's garbage. You go right to chapter 1. That's it. Mm-hmm. Then you go to the back of the book. All of these notes and acknowledgments and you don't need any of it, right? It's all garbage. All the authors write this after. You go to the last chapter. Where's the last chapter? Let's see. Last chapter on this book is, the last chapter is, no, there's a conclusion. We don't need that either. So let's see. Chapter 14 is the last chapter. Go to the last page, tear out everything else. This is garbage. You don't need this. This is all written after. I know authors. I'm an author. I'm friends with authors. This stuff all gets written later on. Now you've got the actual book. This is all that you need, right? So you get the actual book, take off all the binders. This is it. Now what you do is very simple. Count out 8 pages. Go from chapter 1. Count out 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take your 8 pages out, rip them out, get a stapler, staple them. That's it. That's what you carry around with you right there. You take one of these little packets every single day. What I recommend is keep one by your bedside and read it in the morning, not before bed when you have energy, right? As soon as you're opening your eyes, read this. Read these every single day, these packets. And what you want to do is get a highlighter. I always have a green highlighter. Keep a green highlighter. If you're new to this, you could put it on the top of the page, right? And just write down implement. Anything that this book tells you to do, if it's instructions, right? I want you to do this or this or this. Highlight that section. Okay. And the green section is the actual stuff to take action on. And then go implement that stuff immediately before you go through the rest of the book. Don't wait. Do not be a perfectionist, right? Yeah. So, right, if he says, Dan Martell says, go do X, Y, and Z, go and do it. There you go. You will, these little packets, right? If you look through my laptop bag, you'll always see one of these are always with me. If you do this, I guarantee you, first of all, it's 8 pages, right? It's so thin, you could read this in a second. But here's the secret. It's not really 8 pages. It's really 16, right? Because they're double-sided. Right. You will get through book after book after book after book. And you'll not only that, you'll be able to do things like say, oh, what I really like is on outrageous advertising is page 292, gives you all the headlines for all of your YouTube videos. And Alex Hormozy's on page 26, he gives you the Grand Slam offer. And on page 40, he gives you, because this stuff is in your brain. This doesn't happen with Audible. And grab another highlighter and anything that's not implementable that you want to remember or make content about or whatever, it's like the reason why you're doing it, highlight that in a different color, grab a pen, and just like Ryan Holiday teaches us, take notes in the margin. That's it. You will read book after book. This will change. If this is the only thing that anybody gets from me, I am telling you, brother, this will change your life. Instead of all the reels and the scrolling and the games and the drama and the gossip and did you hear about this guy? No. This is what replaces all of it. And your life will be exponentially better in minutes.
Amazing. Yeah. And this is something that I think this alludes to the CEO mentality, right? If you look at the average Fortune 500 CEO, they read like some crazy number of books a year, right? So you're basically given a practical, hands-on way of doing that, right? For those who are just getting started. So I love it. So we'll keep that in mind. Anything else you want to add there?
Well, it's just a game changer. And I think it's even for people who are seasoned, but I know a lot of people give me a heartache about, I was told as a kid, I was a visual learner. So was I. I was an audio learner. That's what no. Everyone's a visual and audio learner. You have to still read books. I mean, this is the great separator. All throughout, reading is so powerful that there have been times in history where reading was withheld from certain people just because it was so empowering. Like everyone says, I want to be wealthy. I want to be successful. I want more peace. I want less suffering. These are the answers. I didn't produce these answers. I didn't read books until I was in my early 30s. And now I read I books and books and books and books. That's all I do and it's 8 pages. It's nothing. It will change your life. It'll change your friends. It'll change and that's generational. Your kids watching you read is generational wealth.
Right.
That's generational wealth, not leaving them, $1 million or blah, blah, blah in a state trust, infinite banking, be your own bank. No. Just read a book.
Yeah, that's it, right? The knowledge, like we said earlier, if you get that down, everything else will come. So beautiful. Awesome. So next rule.
Rule number 9. This is so important. My goodness gracious. I cannot see how so many entrepreneurs suffer because of this. Rule number 9 is know the 9 rules of marketing. So first of all, what is marketing, right? Let's just go super easy. Right. Marketing, right? When you hire a marketing person and they're talking about this and that and followers and subscribers and ROAS and acronyms and upside down lead funnel and lost leaders and self-liquidating offers and all this garbage, okay? Just free your brain, right? Just free your brain from all of this garbage. And here is what it actually looks like. Marketing is divided into 3 columns. It's the first column is to get attention. The second column is to keep attention. And the third column is to convert attention. That's it. And that can happen many, many times, or it can, if you're confused about it, think of the chalkboard sign, the foldable chalkboard sign in front of the downtown restaurant, right? Right. The first thing is, the question is it getting attention? Are people stopping, right? Are they seeing it? Do we need to make it bigger? Do we need to make it brighter, right? Do we need to be more in the middle of the sidewalk traffic so people have to see it? If you're not getting attention, we call this the car alarm problem, right? It's like, or we call it like the invisible man problem. The invisible man means that nobody can even see you. Second thing is it keeping attention? That's the car alarm problem, right? Meaning like you hear a car alarm, you see it, but then you go right back to what you're doing. Everybody's heard a car alarm. It's no, right? Unless somebody's actively robbing the car, people ignore it. Right. The keeping attention is the sign giving people value, right? Is it saying the right thing? Is it talking about escargot and people are like, oh, I see it, but I don't like escargot, and they just keep walking? Or is it like, sea bass and filet? So what does the sign say? Can we have somebody run out and give them a free sample as they're reading the sign? That's keeping the attention. The third thing is your marketing bringing it in? Is it converting? Are people reading the sign, stopping, reading it, and then walking into the restaurant? Now, the reason I say that is because this is what confuses so many owners, and they just don't get marketing. You don't have to be a marketing genius to understand that the marketing person has one job, which is to increase the conversations with prospects. That's it. So how do you do that? Number 1, first rule in marketing, copied. This is not the time to use your entrepreneurial creative bug. Don't create new copy. Everything has already been done for you. Go to one of your direct competitors and copy what they do, or go to a mentor and just say, give me the marketing piece that I need to use. Do not reinvent the wheel. I am telling you, this is the number 1 mistake. It's the reason it's the first rule of the 9.
Right.
Everyone messes this up. Oh, I changed it around and I made it better. No, you didn't. All you did is cause more suffering. So number one, copied. Number two is big. Most people don't need or want your product. And most people who do need or want it don't want to pay for it. So your marketing is a volume game first. You got to go big. If you do not pick a channel that you can't go big in because of a lack of money. If you're going to have to use hard work and sweat equity, pick a channel where that's going to have the biggest number of eyeballs. So it's got to be big because it's a volume game before it's a skill game. Number three is it's got to be consistent. This is another thing you see mess up all the time. Marketing is like a story. You can't stop telling it. So if it goes out, I remember when I was in real estate, we had direct mail, as you know, right? Every single week. I don't care. Right. Christmas, Kwanzaa, 4th of July, Hanukkah, Memorial Day, rain, sleet, hail. Not that we have snow in Florida, but no reason. I don't care what the excuse is. Every single week, every Monday, 2:00, direct mail goes out, no matter what. It's a train. Don't let it stop. Right. Next rule in marketing is singularity. Go to a person who's suffering, who's not having a lot of results. Hey, what do you do to find your clients or customers or whoever? Homeowners, right? What are you doing? Right. Oh, well, I'm on TikTok and I also go to the realtor's office and I put up billboards and direct mail and bandit signs. I also advertise on TV and radio and the local paper. I want to be everywhere, Facebook and Instagram. Go to a person who's consistently making $100,000 per month every month. Hey, how do you find your customers? Oh, well, we have this one channel. We totally dominate it. I know the right color, the right font, the right time of day, what it should say, the message, how to pick up, what is the process when they call in. I've got it all documented, automated. I own that channel in my local industry or town or geography, whatever it is. And then I put somebody in charge of it. And then I picked a second channel.
Okay.
So, singular, right? Easy peasy lemon squeeze. Does that make sense so far?
It does. I do have a question for you though. Yeah. For people who are more cash strapped with respect to they don't have the money to run ads, or mailers can be expensive as well, right? Depending on how you do it. What type channels should someone who's starting out or who may not have the biggest budget to get going, should they be looking at?
Well, it depends on what industry they're in, but are we talking real estate or just general business, or what is the?
Let's say general business.
Yeah. So anything that's free. And that, so go back to marketing, right? There's a great book called Duct Tape Marketing, Guerrilla Marketing, right? Or something like that. There's a few of them, but you've got to make sure my marketing is doing this. Is it getting attention? Is it holding the attention? And is it converting the attention? And that could happen in many iterations, right? So for instance, for a new business, it might be that you have to get attention, keep it, and then convert it to an email. And then the emails have to keep attention and then convert it to a sale. So it's not always just one sequence to revenue. But there are tons of ways. When you really, the real question is, how bad do you want it? Right? That's really the question. Because I'll tell you this, if somebody that you really love got bitten by a poisonous snake, and you had to go knock on 1,000 doors in order to get that antivenom, you have that done immediately, right? But if you're like, hey, I'm kind of comfortable and I'm still going to eat tomorrow and my loved one's not going to, nothing's bad. There's no such thing as a lack of motivation. There's only the wanting of one thing more than another. So I think that the real answer is there are tons of free channels, especially this day and age with social media. Wholesaling Inc. was just a regular business. I didn't spend money on marketing for years. I'm talking years. I'm talking millions of dollars in revenue without a penny on marketing. People always like, what was your ad budget? Or what was, what ads did you on Facebook, or did you like this one? No, there were no ads. We had podcasting, social media groups, in-person meetings. Now there were some fees sometimes associated with that, right? But even when we had our first ones, it was buy your own lunch at the barbecue place, right? The barbecue place didn't charge me except for the cost of a pork sandwich. I think that you have to be creative and find people who are using it. Marketing basically will break down to what is paid marketing. It's just saying, hey, what you're doing right now organically, if you put money behind, I can do it for you paid. So it's really more appropriate to say what's paid marketing, because paid marketing is only the amplification of organic marketing. That's all it really does. It says you found something that works, so I'm going to put a loudspeaker on it so it touches more people. Right. But that's why you always do organic first, because organic is a good way to know what is a good way to dial in your message.
Right. It's like organic is the vehicle, and then the gas or the nitro is the actual paid.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you may not even want it. You might get to a point where you're like, hey, I don't want paid, because paid can be super scary for a lot of people. And I get it.
Right.
I didn't want paid for years.
Right.
But yeah, social media groups, podcasting, in-person meetings, collecting testimonials is free. Like when you make somebody happy, go put it on video and put it out there. Building your email list is totally free. Going live on social media is free. I mean, most marketing and best marketing is free.
Yeah, absolutely. See, there's a mental shift I know for a lot of people. So thank you for kind of iterating on that, because we got some really deep insights there. All right. So
so that's singular. 5, right? 5 is fast. You got to fast. We know from A/B split testing that there's about a 50% conversion fall off on your sales every 24 hours. So the minute somebody raises their hand, grab their hand, pull them onto the dance floor. Your marketing's got to be a fast response time. It's got to be delegated. Meaning, like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're hosting this podcast, I like you. I would never hire you to do my marketing, because you're hosting a podcast, which means you're an entrepreneur, which means you're not going to be loving the routine and consistency of making sure my marketing is out, right? So delegate it to somebody who loves routine and consistency and is detail oriented. The next thing is it has to be trackable. This is a big one. This is where I literally have people, I'm not exaggerating, they come to me, and a lot of my clients are very wealthy, right? So they'll say, oh, like, we just hired a branding expert and we spent like $35,000 on branding, and they're like embossing making my signature pretty and picking colors. And marketing has an ROI. If I give you $10, I need to get back a certain amount of dollars. If I can't track it, it ain't marketing, right? This is Dan Kennedy 101. Great marketing produces branding, right? Don't now there's nothing wrong with branding people. I don't want to start a whole thing here, right? But if I put in money, I need to see a return. That's all I'm going to say. Next thing with marketing, this is probably the most frequent problem I see. To me, this is insane. Your marketing must be double checked. I cannot tell you how many clients I've had in a decade where everything is going great and they're making money, and then everything just hits a wall or falls off a cliff. And you're like, what happened? You know what happened? They somebody forgot to pay the phone bill for the marketing number, and the phone number was going dead, and nobody checks it for like 5 or 7 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. So just make sure that all of you have a little checklist. You don't have to be complicated. Yeah. Every Wednesday at 1:00, Sally goes through whoever, make sure, is the website working? Is the thank you page working? Is the link working? Are the phone numbers up and running? Simple. Save yourself. Everybody waits until there's a problem. And a lot of times they don't find the problem right away. So they'll say, we have to spend more on marketing because your application link just stopped working. Like, hello, guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Huh. So, and then the last thing is it should be split tested. Your marketing should basically, everybody they talk about split testing. And then when I get into, and they'll even say like, I split tested this. No, you didn't. No, you're not split tested. So just, run one that's blue and one that's red. Run one that says one. Remember, when you split test, only change one thing. Right. So just split test all your stuff. Just if you have a message or you want to get better at it, start split testing. Pull something, test one thing at a time. Over time, you'll see which one performs better. And then just always choose the one that performs better. And then split test something else. The font, the color, the time of day, the message, the CTA, call to action, whatever. Who cares, right? Putting a thank you video, don't putting a thank you, whatever it is. But the more you split test, the more you become a master craftsman of what you're doing. And you really get to know the pain and the dreams and the hopes and what keeps them up at night of your clients. And that's the most important thing.
Got it.
So those are the 9 rules of marketing. And if any of your listeners just run through those checklists, that's key.
Right.
You ready? Keep going. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would like to ask about split testing, do you have any specific resources that you'd like to guide people towards so they can learn how to split test effectively? Maybe a specific book or...
No, but here, the way I learned to do split testing is this. First of all, I let my marketing person take care of it. By the time you're split testing, this is not something the owner should do. The owner should basically make $8,000 a month and then hire a full-time local executive assistant immediately. And then as soon as their income goes up, which should be in about by the fourth month, it should be an additional 15,000 with an EA. Then you just bring on a marketing person and you just say, hey, show me what you're split testing. The rule to follow in split testing is one thing at a time. What messes so many people up is they'll, like, for instance, if you're using direct mail as your split test, you can't send out one piece and then one totally different piece. It doesn't work that way. You got to like send out one piece and then you say, like, we're going to change on 50%. Instead of saying sincerely, we're going to say thank you, right? Or whatever in the signature. But just change one thing, or the postcard is going to be like, instead of, we're going to go from purple to orange, whatever.
Got it.
Yeah. Easy peasy.
Good stuff. Awesome.
And the fact that I don't know that is also another testament to, everyone always will ask, ask who, not how. And then they're doing everything themselves. Robert was really key with me on this. He said, I am the captain of the ship. I bring in a navigator. I bring in an engineer, right? I'm not, I can manage and monitor those people, but I'm not the person sitting in the seat. A lot of people, they don't do that. And the thing that I want all of your listeners to realize is this: someone else doing it 70% as good as you can, but consistently doing it 100% of the time is far, far, far superior than you doing it 100% perfectly 70% of the time. And those two things cannot be compared. If you see, again, who has the most suffering as an entrepreneur, it's always the one who has the most preferences about how things are done. Everybody should really hear me on this, right? When you have a lot of preferences, and I'm very particular about how, no. I'm particular about the outcome, right, that my client gets. Right. Certainly. Right. But I am much better now that I went from amateur to professional. I am seasoned enough and salty enough to say and realize me doing something 100% the way I like it, 70% of the time, because I'm not good at, execution and implementation. I'm all over the place. I've got 1,000 ideas a day. I'm, pivoting. I can't, but somebody who's consistently doing, and here's this little secret to make anybody who's nervous about this feel better. When you bring in that person, in about 90 days, they're going to be doing it way better than you ever did it, way more effectively. So they may not be getting it at first, but if they're a good, honest, intelligent person who's ready to learn and they share your vision and they want to be a part of something awesome, they'll come in and do a better job than you ever did. I guarantee it. All you have to do is go to an owner and ask them to do something they used to do, and it's not like riding a bike. I could barely send an email. I've got 315 unread text messages, 9,470 unread emails. Like, I don't do that stuff anymore. So, rule number 10, you ready?
Yep. Fire away.
10 weeks, not 10 months. Whenever you start a new project, go all in, all of your time, energy, focus, attention, revenue, all focused on one thing, and you'll reduce your suffering. If it's a really crappy product and the market doesn't want it, you'll know in 10 weeks, instead of people who they go 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and it takes 10 months. So if you want to reduce your suffering, 10 weeks, not 10 months. That's enough of that. Rule number 11.
Got it.
Measure your net worth every single week, especially if you're just starting. You can move to once a month later, but one of the ways that I can guarantee you that you are going to go out of business is if every single week I just take like 1% of your net worth out. Like, so from you and your family, I just say, hey, whatever your net worth is, I'm going to steal 1% of it every single month. It's going to just go down by 1%. I can almost guarantee you're going to be out of business in a very short amount of time. Entrepreneurs have no tolerance for a net worth that is going down. A lot of us get distracted by a thing called cash flow, which a lot of people don't really understand what cash flow is. And there's a lot of different definitions of it if you ask individual entrepreneurs what cash flow means. But the number one thing to do is sit down, especially if you're married, if you have a spouse, a fiance, a partner, a significant other, once a week, measure your net worth. Take everything you own and say, hey, if I sold everything I own, what would I be left with? And take everything that you owe and say, if I paid off everything I own and subtract the one number from the other, that's your net worth. And it should be going up every single week, barring some craziness, right? Dips in the stock market and whatnot. But for anybody who's wondering, I'll give you a quick little thing about what to do with your money. I call it 50, 20, 25, 5. I'm not giving advice. I'm just saying this is what works for me. I'm not a financial advisor. Go to your financial advisor first. This is what works for me and my household. 50% of your money in real estate, 20% in cash, 20% in an index fund. Like I like VTI. It's a total index fund. 5% in gold, physical gold, which you can keep at a gold depository if you want overseas or wherever. And then 5% in high risk speculation accounts, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, individual stocks, crazy hard money loans that are super risky. Anything where you could lose it all, but you could also make a really big return. It's a basic way, and that's a good place to have your net worth sitting. Awesome. Really, the only difference between net worth, rich people and poor people earn money and buy things. Rich people earn money and then buy assets, and the assets buy things. So this is just a good way to start thinking. Rich people, all they do is they put an asset in between them and the liabilities that they buy, and poor people don't. That's the only real difference when you really look at rich people and poor people. It's that's one of the key differences.
Awesome. So basically, working for assets that then make you money, living off of that as opposed to living off of the money that you work for, essentially. Yeah,
just when you make money, don't buy liabilities. When you earn money, however you earn it, whether you have a job or an entrepreneur, when you earn money, I cannot tell you how many clients I've made. Sometimes I'll have a client who comes in, I just don't know. I'm moving a lot of money around, Tom, but I'm just not keeping it. I don't know where it goes. And then they have like a $1,500 lease on a car.
Right.
Like, bro, you have to be a good steward of money. We're only the managers of money, and the better manager of money you are, the more you'll be put in charge of. That's it.
Right.
It's like you don't lease a car or finance a car. Obviously, you want to buy a car. Great. It's $5,000 or 5% of your net worth every 5 years, and you pay cash. And if you lease or finance a car now, and people will say, well, I write off my car. No, you don't. I look at people's taxes. Almost nobody. Look, I understand if you have a service business, you own a pest control company, and you actually write off a fine, right? But 99.8% of the people who say, yeah, but they kick the system and they say, oh no, you don't understand. My car, no, it's not. I'm looking at here's your P&L, and I'm looking at everything, and you're not writing off your car. So no car lease. No, you don't. Obviously, wealthy people never finance, or lease a car. Why would you? You could pay cash for it. They play this game with. I mean, again, this doesn't apply to 100% of the people, but 99.8% of the people are suffering because they are tricked into getting a good credit score to lease or finance a car. You would never do that. You don't. You pay cash for a car, obviously.
Right.
It's not that obvious.
Yeah.
I guess, but.
No, that's a good point. Awesome. So next rule.
12 is if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. This is a good one. If you have a goal or a vision, just write it down. If you have a rule, one of the first things I do with my clients, right? Give me an org chart. I want to know what everybody does, right? And I want to know a checklist. They don't have the org chart. And so what happens is you have multiple people responsible for multiple things, right? Multiple people in the multiple seats. Write down your goal. I have mine written down all the time, and write it down. And if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. Show me a checklist. If I'm buying your company, remember, Michael Gerber teaches us that, your product is your company. Your product, what you do, is your business. It's not what the business sells. What the business sells is different. But, my product was Wholesaling Inc. before I sold it, right? That's how I learned how to think about it from Michael Gerber and other amazing people. So you have to if I'm buying your business, I'm not buying a job, I'm buying revenue. I need to see processes. You don't have to go crazy with Traction and Gino Wickman or Vern Harnish from Scaling Up or, big crazy. All you need is like a one piece of paper that says, hey, Sally does this. This is John. He produces conversations with prospects. We call him the marketing guy. This is what he does, right? He has checklists, right? Like, hey, Wednesdays at 2:00, he puts out a social media post. Or, hey, when a lead comes in, he does this. There's agreement on the things. Like, what does the word lead mean? I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting and somebody else, they'll say, well, we're bringing in X amount of leads. And the marketing person and the owner, I'll say to the owner, what's a lead? And the owner will say, well, somebody fills out an application. And then I'll say to the marketing guy, like, what's a lead? And they'll say, well, when somebody comes for a phone call. It's like, what is happening here?
It is so true.
So true, right? So I
think absolutely.
little things like that. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. I
Mm-hmm.
wrote down some of my rules here. Let me see if I can go through. 13 is sometimes it's better to do it yourself. That's just as clear as it can be. Number 14, only hire people who already have jobs. I know it's
Right.
going to aggravate some people, but if you want to work for me, go get a job first. I'm not going to hire you if you're not working. I don't care what the reason is or excuse. I'll let
Mm-hmm.
Fortune 2000 companies deal with that. But I need people who are working. I want to steal you from, let me be loud and clear. I want to steal my people from people who they're really doing well. I have to convince them to come over to me because they agree with my vision.
Right.
All the best people who've worked for me had jobs, and all the people who, and my clients included, who have problems or issues, the person wasn't working for whatever reason. 15 is, the 15 is a big one for real estate people, is everybody who went out in 2008 did this. They don't throw good money to save bad deals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have a bad deal, take it behind the barn, shoot it, be honest with your lenders, tell them that you messed up. Don't start borrowing money to save bad deals, because bad deals, the market doesn't care how much you win or lose. It's just going to keep, money. One of the rules of money is you're just going to keep suffering. Number 16 is great. Don't strive to be the best, not the biggest. This is huge. Sometimes, especially with some of my younger clients, they'll come in, I want to be the biggest X, Y, and Z, and never turns out well. And if you're the best, you might become the biggest, but striving to be the best is going to, if you use that as your lighthouse, and not that you're holier than thou, but if you use that, you'll always have a better outcome. Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. Never say my money. Just remember, we're the stewards of money. You literally can't take it with you. The better steward you are, the more you'll be put in charge of. So just pretend like the money that you're given is money that you're managing for the universe or God or someone else, whoever you want to put in there. But it's not our money. That is for sure.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looking at, you have to separate yourself from money for sure. Hire an EA first is your first hire. We've already went through that. Number 19, tame the bear. This is a big one. The best way I can go through this really quickly is you have to tame the bear every day. What that means is we all wrestle this bear every single day, every minute. You and I on this podcast right now, everyone who's listening, they have a bear. The bear is, it starts with just understanding. I'll slow down here a little. The origin of every result is a belief. So if you look at the results someone's getting, it always leads back to a belief that they have, that they believe something is true or not true. So the BEAR acronym stands for believe. It's kind of a circle. It's believe. Everything you believe will lead to every emotion and thought that you have. Every emotion and thought leads to every action you take or don't take. Every action leads to every result you get or don't get. And every result will reinforce your beliefs. And it just goes in a circle. It's just all day. And we're all on it all day, right?
Yeah.
I think that, my wife is unfaithful. So I feel a certain kind of way about that. And it makes me think things, right? And then my action is I don't travel for work because I don't want to leave her alone. And I'm aggravating to her and I cause arguments and I'm suspicious and jealous. And then she actually cheats on me, right? Because I'm making the relationship so uncomfortable. And then I'm like, see, I told you I can't trust her. And we just go around and around. So hold your beliefs up to the light and make sure, because, Tony Robbins teaches us this too. It's hard to change what you think about because the source of what you think about is a belief. It's very, thank goodness, easy to change. You could change your beliefs in 1 second. 1 second, right? You, not a decision, but what you actually believe you can change almost instantly. And you can just have some self-talk that says, hey, I believe that this is not a problem. This is an opportunity. And then it literally will change your emotions and thoughts, your actions, your results. And you'll be like, see, I knew there was going to be good in this.
Is this a place where, like, a lot of people say meditation is super important when it comes to manifesting the right things and really kind of framing how you're going to go forward in your life? Is that kind of like a tool that you would say to really make sure that you are having the correct beliefs? I
think that meditation is important. Prayer, meditation. I think that, if I could turn this, you would see my little meditation mat. I can't turn the camera, but there's a little, and I have a little bench. I can actually show it to you. Let's see. I had to step over all of the book pieces that we tore, but this is my little like meditation bench. So it folds out.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I would say that focusing on your breath, taking 15 minutes a day to just slow down and making sure that a lot of us we're drivers, we're entrepreneurs, that we're driving towards the same thing, the thing that we're supposed to be driving towards, making sure that we're intentional about faith, family, friends, fun, finance, fitness, like all the things that are important, all the F's. I think that a lot of times when I see people who really suffer, what they have done is they keep moving the goalpost, and then they start monetizing every relationship, or they start running up the score of a one game. And you can see that because they start to sacrifice success for wealth. This always leads to you never want to sacrifice success for wealth. You got to be intentional about stuff, and you got to, you'll have thoughts and meditations like, I'm only one person. I have 5 kids. I need to every Thursday. My kids' names are Logan, Lacey, Lily, Lucas, Levi. So their second initial in their first name is AEIOU. So if you look at my calendar, yeah, it's funny, but
that's cool.
It's a lot of work. But if you look at my calendar any day of the week, any Thursday, you will see, and I can pull it up right now so everyone doesn't think I'm, I think I can, I can't really show this to you, but oh, actually, wait, maybe if I click on it. Oh, yes, you can. Okay. I can't show you my whole because I have private clients on here. But if you look at my Thursday on the 21st, you can see an O, right? And that's at 5 o'clock. And every 5 o'clock on Thursday, it either says A, E, I, or U. It just means that that's Logan. I'm going to do something special for Logan or with Logan. But little things like that will come up in meditation when you just focus on your breath. And, life is really short. So you don't want balance because that's impossible and silly and causes frustration and aggravation. You want harmony, right? That all of these things are working together. So when you have a time to slow down and meditate on these things, you start to get the right ideas. Or I would say one thing I've learned in business is that solutions are easy, problems are elusive. So you start to find the right problem, and then the solutions just appear. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. That makes a lot of sense. Chase problems, not solutions. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
The 20th one is so key, is memorize responses to important questions, not just popular questions. This is so key for any entrepreneur. Simple things like, what do you do? Or in your, if it's real estate, right? If you have people who are listening to real estate, it's like, answering questions like, are you going to live in the property, right? If you're an investor, and being able to answer questions that are going to come up. It's a lot of us, what we do is we have responses memorized to frequently asked questions, but what we really need to know is the core questions. And we need to memorize those responses because not because you don't want to be caught off guard in a question if someone asks you. It's because those questions like, why are you doing this? Or what do you do? Right. A lot of my clients, when they're struggling, one of the things I do is I make sure that all the oars in their organization are rowing in the same direction at the same time with the same speed and force right. Because otherwise they're just spinning in the water, not going anywhere.
Right.
One of the ways to do that is I ask the team like, hey, what do we do here? And you'd be really surprised. They don't know a lot. And who doesn't know most of all is the owner, right? They include too many people or too many, right? So just know the answers and memorize the answers to important questions and just check in with them and say, hey, am I on track? Is this what we're doing? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing here? Those are the 20. Those are the top 20. Here's what I would say. It's just skipping around. This is what I would share with your audience. Here's some really good, just quick ones.
Okay.
Number 24, just make sure guys, this is so important. Make sure that when you hire an attorney to review documents, you hire a trial attorney, not one who sits behind a desk all day. Attorney will keep a trial attorney. When Sally says, oh, you can't talk to him right now, Tom, he's in court. That's the guy that you want. Not the one who's like, oh yeah, you can take your call any time of the day. He sits in his office all day. Right. Hire trial attorneys. Trial attorneys will keep you out of court. Barter with your assets, not with your time. It's not everybody will understand that, but that's just a rule I'll just skip over.
Makes sense.
Number 25, if it's not passive, it's a business and you ought to treat it like one. I can't tell you how many people, like I just invested in an Airbnb. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did not invest in Airbnb. You just bought a business. And you better treat it like a business, or I'm going to be buying that Airbnb for 60 cents on the dollar in about 3 years. So if it's not passive, it's a business, and treat it like one. Let's see. Oh yeah. Never let tools outgrow your revenue. That just means go make the money first, and then make sure the tools are always chasing it. Like our current tools can't keep up with this many leads or this much revenue.
Right.
Then go buy tools. Don't buy all fancy, complicated tools. And then now let's go make the money to justify the tools.
Right.
That's an easy one. Share your scars, not your wounds. I'll just leave that one there. No lead left behind. Don't distract your team when you're distracted. That's a big one. Know how to read a P&L. That's a big one. Always think and speak in net, not gross, right? One feeds your ego, one feeds your family. Scrolling. Wow. Rule number 40 good people. I'll teach you. This will be the last trick. You ready for a game changer?
Yeah.
All right. Game changer. Tom, how do you get a hold of so many people? This is one of the best books ever written. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I've gone through it so many times I could practically recite it. But one of the things he talks about is reciprocity. You want to have an amazing network of people who are going to, if you look at I don't have it. Do I have it here? Oh, no, I don't. If you look at my journal, one of the things it says, I know that today I think is number 27, but I always, I have make a list of 40 people who are amazing in your industry or space that you want to get to know, or that have influence with your customers, clients, whoever. Every single day, Monday through Friday, for 8 weeks, go to that person, right? Go to Francis Ebola, Zach Childress. I'm trying to think of who is on my list, or Jay and Carol Joy Connor and David Lecco or Trevor Mauch from Carrot, or whoever. Just go through those people, go through your person for the day, and just do something really amazing for them. If somebody launched a new podcast, say, hey, I just want to let you know, I loved your podcast. Good luck in the future. I shared it with my whole audience. I rated it. I left a review that's all SEO'd with your keywords. Here's a copy of it. I left you a 5-star review, and I listened to an episode, and I let it play in the background so that your subscriber, I subscribe to it. If you build reciprocity, meaning you give and you forget, and you receive and you don't forget, and you thank them, right? If you do this, your network, those 40 people, will open every single door. When I don't care what you sell, you go to open you go buy a door hinge company. Right. Every door will open. You will sell more door hinges in the first week than any other door hinge company because of those 40 good people. I can, all these books, I have books, I can't turn my camera, but I know a lot of these authors because I've done this. I'm friends with them. I can call them. They'll pick up the phone, right? 40 good people. I am telling you, nobody does this. Nobody. What they do is they'll go to one mastermind or what conference, and they'll make one friend. Make 40 friends, 40 good people, and be intentional every single morning or sometime during that day. Send somebody a victory bell, congratulate them on their success, go follow their page, go like it, share it with your audience, whatever. And don't expect anything in return. And I guarantee you, they'll show up for you. Don't start conversations, or don't call people you haven't talked to in 90 days and say, hey, can you do me a favor real quick? No. Rookie mistake.
Right.
Rookie mistake.
Right.
Yeah, that's how you want the game changing. It's rule number 40. Rule number 40 will, if you read and you implement, 8 pages a day, rule number 8, and you implement rule number 40, I'm not going to say you can't fail, but it's getting real hard. It's getting real hard to fail. So if you follow those rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to point out to the audience, if you notice, everything he said that you can do to build this reciprocity and this goodwill, everything he said was free, right? So you're using your time. Yeah, you're using your time to get this massive value. And I think I got this from you, taking massive imperfect action and reach out to those 40 people, just like he said, and you'll definitely see success. Awesome. Yeah. Are there any more rules that you feel like, okay, this one is super important before we move on to the next segment about the future state? This one here is something I definitely want to put in front of everybody. If there's anything else,
I would say a few. Here's what I would say. Just rule number 1: revenue in first position. Just make sure you're making money while you're planning on making money. And a little trick for everybody that you can implement this week is always be interviewing. It's one of the rules in our business is, people will call me and they'll say, oh, Tom, like, I need a high ticket phone closer, or I need a account manager. I just lost if you just interview just have your executive assistant set up 2 interviews a week for 20 minutes and just keep a private Rolodex of people you interview. It'll change your whole life because you'll always have a Rolodex of people waiting. And the last rule that I would say is this: as a leader, if you listen, guys, just slow down for 1 second here. If you listen to Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, Carl Icahn, Bill Ackerman, Jeff Bezos, Rockefeller, Ford, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, all the greats, all of the men and women, they have an ability to become and speak in a childlike way. They are not complicated people. You watch out for things you don't understand. Don't just be like the masses who sit there and they agree and they never raise their hand to ask a question. When someone's speaking to you, if one of the things I have on my phone is on my action button. If you hold my action button down, let me see if I can do this. If you hold my action button down on my phone, you can see that my AI tool pops up, right?
Right.
Hey, Emma, how's it going today?
Hey, Tom, it's going great. Thanks for asking. How about you? Anything exciting?
Yeah, it's going well. I'm on a podcast right now with my good friend David, and I just want to ask you, can you give me what are the last 3 words that I've asked you to look up the definition for?
I'm glad to hear it's going well. Unfortunately, I can't access past records of specific words we've looked up together. But if you need help with any definitions or anything else right now.
Let me see. I'll tell you what they are. Just go through my history. So the last words, well, here's what I would say. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a conversation and someone will use something and I'll say like, hey, Emma, what's the definition of this word? Don't successful people, they're really good at slowing down and really understanding something and making it palatable and digestible to themselves and then to their team and to their community and to their clients and to their family. So just be careful here that you don't get sucked into this world of just being agreeable. You want to really pause and be careful of complexity. This is how people take advantage of you in the marketplace. This is how things happen, and they go on so long until they start to smell bad and they get infected. So whenever you're talking with a team member, a client, always try to break things down. When you listen to Warren Buffett, he's not complicated. My 16-year-old can understand Warren Buffett, right? He has a very simple principles. So does Ray Dalio. On all of these men and women who are multimillionaires and leaders and billionaires and influential, they are simple people. But when you see people who are complicated, that's the thing you have to watch. Those are the people you got to be very careful. They speak very quickly and they gloss over stuff and they use big language and big vocabulary. Be careful. Be careful. I really want you guys to hear me. This is where you want to be not simple-minded, but you want to be childlike in how you understand your business, your community, your purpose, what you do, why you do it, and just choose things that are easy. Make sure you understand them. And if people won't give you the time to slow down, be cautious there. This is one of the most important rules, because when you're like, well, what happened? How did this, you're calling me now, you're 65 years old and you're totally broke. Like what? It's always complexity. It's always the things that are difficult for people to wrap their minds around. It's never something like simple or black and white. It's always like intricate and lots of moving parts. So take a deep breath, relax, look at your life right now, look at your business right now. What do you really not understand? Did you hire like a marketing agency and you don't understand like all these terms they're using? Don't pretend like you know what ROAS means if they're saying that to you and you really don't, because it will close your business down. I'm telling you. So that's what I would say, if you want to reduce your suffering and have more success and wealth, try to be childlike in how you understand and how you explain things and the purpose behind them. And I can almost guarantee your life will be better if you do that.
Amazing words. And you did something for us just now that actually alludes to the next segment, the future state. And you pulled out your iPhone and you started speaking to your assistant there, it sounded like. And so let me introduce this segment and then we'll dive right into that, because we'd love to hear about how you're implementing things like AI in your life. So the future state is the next segment. And in this segment, we're going to talk about what the future looks like when it comes to technology and the world that we live in, as everything seems to be changing on a momently basis. All right. So you just pulled out your phone and you started immediately utilizing that resource, which is almost like a second brain, AI. So could you talk to us a little bit about AI, how you see it applied in your life, and what do you think the future looks like for people who are applying AI, and any recommendations of that nature?
I love AI. I love it. I use ChatGPT. Let me get right into the details. So first of all, I changed my action button on my iPhone to bring up, I named her Emma. It's just ChatGPT. So I just hold the action button down, and as soon as I do, she pops up, and I can ask her whatever I want to ask her. And she's always like, so, and I use her all the time. And I make sure that my kids watch me using AI. I use it for understanding complex ideas and making them easier to understand. I use them for me in my business, content writing. One of the things that I've done is we've came up with a little script. I can email it to you if your listeners want to use it, but it's how to get ChatGPT to act as a prompt engineer so that I can learn how to ask ChatGPT questions more effectively. So I will write my question, and then I'll say to ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, can you act as a prompt engineer and make this prompt more effective? And then it'll read the prompt, and it will ask me a whole bunch of questions, and then it'll create a new prompt, and then that prompt will give me exactly what I need. I also have something I use. It's called Plaud, P-L-A-U-D. It's a magnetic. It sits on the back of my phone. It auto records conversations, and then it will break those conversations down into a mind map or a to-do list or a summary or of all sorts of options that you have there.
Wow.
Yeah. So my clients like Plaud because I could just send them over what we just talked about, and they'll say, hey, do this, 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 and this, and why you're doing it. But I use it. Yeah. It's called Plaud, P-L-A-U-D, and it's a voice. It's a recorder. Oh, you can even use it in a meeting, and it'll just record like a conference, and then it'll break it down into, for me, I like a to-do list, right? So if you're talking to me for 2 hours, I trust you. I see you as an authority in the space. I don't need all the reasoning of why you're telling me to do it. I'm like robotic. I like to just do what you tell me to do. Right. So I just want to know, just tell me, fine. I believe you. Fine. Just tell me what to do. And then, so AI can do that for me, which I love. But
is that an actual attachment that you said is separate from your iPhone? It's not an application.
It is. It's both. It's a little tiny. It looks like a credit card. It's charging in my kitchen right now, but it's called Plaud, and it just magnetically attaches to the back of your phone. And if you and I are having a call, I just press the button. It auto records the call, even if I'm on my headphones or my headset. Yeah, auto records and summarizes, and it is phenomenal. And the more you use it, the better it gets. So it's
Yeah, I haven't heard of this one, and I'm into AI, so that's a big one for everybody listening. Sounds like a lot of value there packed in that. So cool.
Oh yeah,
awesome. And so you use Plaud, ChatGPT, and all these you're utilizing daily. It sounds like
multiple times a day. Absolutely. Okay. I use I use AI now at least, I would say, a bare minimum of 3 times a day at least.
Okay. And how are you learning about this, and like how are you really mastering this? Do you have someone or some resource that you follow, or what does that look like?
Yeah, Francis Ebola is phenomenal at this, and he has conferences and courses that he teaches on it where he hosts that. I've learned a lot from him. Everyone should check him out. He's phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, and then I've also taken some online courses. There was something that Google put out on how to use AI effectively. I can't think of the name of it, but if you Google the Google AI course, introduction course, I think it was called, that was great. I think the thing with AI is it's kind of like, it reminds me of when other technologies have come out where at first I was like, I don't really know if like, is this really as good? And then you start kind of forcing yourself to use it, and then you use it. And now I'm at a point now with AI where I rely on it to work.
Right. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. How are you using it? What are the top applications? I'm curious to know.
So ChatGPT. I also use Claude, the actual, it's another thing like ChatGPT. I like literally on a probably weekly basis, get new tools and test them out. So, and then also for example, in Riverside for podcasting, like they have an AI application in there now to do snippets and things. So that's another example way I use it. Then also since we're talking about podcasts, there's also some different AIs that are specifically able to pull out snippets, impactful things of that nature to help you create shorts, which gives you more content to post and go viral, or at least to get the ball going. So that really cuts your workload down and really saves you a lot of money on an editor, for example. So there's some applicable things that I do right now. Opus Clip is the one that we use specifically for that editing of the actual episodes. So there you go.
Know. He's the podcast master. So Opus, what was it called?
Opus Clip.
Opus Clip. I'll check it out.
Yep. Yeah. And another thing, my previous, I would say, role that I had, I actually was someone who helped do projects implementing manufacturing AI when it came to the machines and things like that. So yeah, and that obviously becomes way more abstract, and I don't think anyone wants to hear about that. I'm hosting a whole other podcast about that if people are interested. Okay, so yeah, so the maintainers is probably where some people are knowing me from, that podcast there. Okay, and that's where we talk about those type things in manufacturing.
Awesome, I wrote that down. I'll check it out. That's very cool, man. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I always like to talk to people about future-proofing their business, their process, or their life. What are your thoughts on people who are just worried about the future and they want to know what type of things they could do to prepare themselves and their families?
Well, I think, there's a lot of different directions to go with that question. I think that I'm a big believer in multiple streams of income. One of the things that I have done is what I really learned about moving, and I have to give Dave Falk some credit here, because he was really the person who put the seed in my brain about the difference between real estate and business and why business is so much better than real estate. One of the things, he teaches a lot on this, but what I would say is once you move from real estate, which is a great way to make money, to business, which is, once you move from real estate, which is a great way to collect some cash and then invest it into, the market. One of the things that I would say is really big is you want to move towards the understanding that once you know how to once you know how to create a business, you really can move into multiple businesses simultaneously because there are economies of scale. So one of the things that I do, for instance, is I have something called private client, where I have a board seat with people. It's like a board seat.
Right.
So I do revenue share. And what happens is I get to advise these people and I'm on their board for a very, very long time in perpetuity. And as they do better and better and I help them, I'm getting, so even if I have one thing that's not doing well, every month we're receiving perpetuity payments from all of these businesses that I help grow and maintain and scale and exit or whatever. So I think as far as future proofing, the way I would answer that is you just have to be careful of, I feel like I'm messing this answer up. What do you mean by future proofing? Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
Well, like changing an economy and things like that. You answered it, right? So for example, if one sector goes down, let's say real estate, just because because we're on that topic. Let's say real estate goes worst in 2008 and you have other ways you need to make money or other ways you need to implement the value set that you're bringing. Having a second income from, a car dealership, for example, that another sector that could be doing well, that essentially is a way of applying what you just said. So yeah, I think that answered the question pretty well. Did you have any other insight on that you wanted to glean? Obviously we can't predict the future, right? So,
for sure. Here's what I would say on that, right? I think the first thing is diversification in the money that you manage. To be a good steward, right? You want to follow the 50, 20, 25, 5 rule that I use. I think that that's key because the different areas of that sector, the different sectors of that portfolio, they are built to future proof your holdings. I think the other thing that I see is there are some people who try to make money in the market, what I would do is instead of trying to make money with your investments, try to make money as a business owner and then let the market grow that money. The things that always make me nervous, like day trading, and this is like a store of wealth instead of trying to, I prefer to make money in business and then let the marketplace grow my money instead of trying to make money in the market itself with investing. So I think that with the way I have arranged things, I feel like I'm future-proofed, but I'm a little paranoid. And I think that really is the key. One of the things that I notice with successful, wealthy people is that they are a little bit paranoid, or they are always in a season of capital preservation over speculation.
Right.
The people who I see who suffer the most as an entrepreneur is they have this euphoric enthusiasm about the future. I remember I had a client once a very long time ago. He came in and he said to me, well, I said, he's going and going and going. And I said, some of the stuff you're doing, it's kind of risky. And I feel like you're moving 1,000 miles an hour. And by the time you see a wall, even if you stop, you're not going to have enough time to not hit the wall. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, well, I'm young. And even if I do that and I have to claim bankruptcy, I'll just start again because I just have so much energy. And I wrote that down in my client journal. I said, no, I don't. Ultimately, he did unfortunately hit that wall. And he found that he didn't have the same amount of energy because it's some losses are difficult and they affect your confidence. Dan Sullivan teaches us that your personal confidence is the number one thing we have to protect as an entrepreneur. So what I would say is you have to follow the ancient rules for sure. And you have to be well diversified and you have to be a little bit paranoid, and you can't be a hyper spender. This is the other thing. One thing as you get older that you learn is it's 48% how much money you make, and it's 52% how good of a steward you are. Because I can tell you a lot of entrepreneurs are absolutely 110% hyper spenders. They move a lot of money around, and then at the end of the day, they have nothing to show for it. So future-proof your business. Install Mike Michalowicz's Profit First in your business today, not tomorrow, today. 5 bank accounts, right? Owner pay, expenses, tax, whatever it is. The 5 things that take entrepreneurs out of the game: debt, divorce, legal, health, taxes. So you have to be right on those things. And some of them are in your control and some of them aren't, like genetics and things like that, right? But you don't want to, you always want to maintain this attitude of a little bit of paranoia, a little bit of capital preservation over speculation is the name of the game. That's how you future-proof your business.
Right. And there's a saying, I think this actually goes back to World War II, but there's a saying that goes, during hard times, the paranoid are the ones that survive. Right. And you mentioned that foundation. It seems like it's a thing that is going to get you through the hard times to where you still thrive. And then that's why the market is going to be the thing, that rising tide of that market is going to raise all boats. So I see all these different rules that you mentioned earlier kind of tying into kind of the conversation. So you see, this is hard-hitting stuff. This is stuff to write on your wall next to your bed. Manifest that you ingest these things and really internalize it. I know I will be. So thank you for that. Now, there's one thing that I've heard you say before, and I want to see if I can get you to talk a little bit about that. If you mentioned before, if you ask your parents or your grandparents about the things that has cost them the most, it has something to do with selling assets or doing it incorrectly or something of that nature. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, for sure. And this is something that, I get a lot of flack for some of the things I teach, like only taking half the value of your primary home and your net worth. So there are things that I teach that people don't like. This is one of them. When you and I are old men, here's one of the things I could almost 100% guarantee you is going to be true for both of us, is that looking back, our greatest financial losses will be the assets that we sold. Now, this is controversial because people will say, well, yeah, but sometimes it's good to get out of an asset. I don't disagree. Right. But the point remains true that when you and I are great grandparents and we're sitting in our retirement home or wherever we're sitting in our, hopefully still our home for me and you, I think is the key. But when we're sitting there and we're discussing it, we're going to say, man, I wish I would have kept those 1,500 Bitcoin, or I wish I would have kept that house on Long Island, or I wish I wouldn't have sold that thing because I would have so much today if I wouldn't have got rid of that baseball card or that whatever it was. That's going to be where we're going to have the largest loss of what would have made the biggest impact. So what does that mean? It means this: people who struggle financially, they buy and sell. And you see this all the time. It's short-term, long-term. Sometimes they have a season where they're up, but before too long, right, you always will see this rabbit and hare experiment. So poor people buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell. They're frantic all the time. Wealthy people buy and hold, or they buy and trade up. One of the most important things I ever learned from Robert Kiyosaki was the 1031 exchange. I love it. He told me, he said, well, do you really want to have all those doors? And I said, no. And he told me about that. And I think he gave me the contact I use for my 1031. But the 1031 is just a recognition of like trading up. I think the thing to realize and embrace as a dad, a parent, an entrepreneur, a leader, a student is when we're older, we're going to look back and see the gains that there's a very popular coach. His name is Jack Bosch, who's a friend of mine. He owns a land investing course, and he just made this post, and we were going back and forth about it. And Jack is a great guy if you guys want to invest in land. But I just had mentioned the same exact thing to him, and it's really true. It's just a recognition. And again, it's sometimes, and this is a call for less complexity in your life, right? This is a call for just the basic foundational principles. If you have something, treat it the way wealthy people do it, right? We know for sure that they put an asset between their money that they earn and the things that they buy. We know this for sure. This has been proven. This is not debatable, right? We know they read, we know they put assets in between their money in and their money out. So my only light suggestion here is this: you don't have to do anything with this. You just have to, it's like something to just meditate on. Is what Tom is saying true? If I go and talk to my great grandparents or if they're still with us, right? If you have a conversation with them, if you have conversations with people in their 80s and their 90s, is it true that if they would have kept that first house they bought in 1955, right, in California or New York or Missouri, right, is it true that it would have been today one of their greatest assets? It could be true. Is it true that holding an asset can be a pain in the butt and that houses go down in value and they go back up or they have to be repaired? That's also true. But day in and day out, I want to follow the principles that are the old ancient principles. And I know that this is something that I've noticed is very true. And it's something that I would definitely latch onto and at least be aware of. You know, if your Bitcoin goes up, should you sell it? I will tell you this: I'm not selling. Right. I mean, that's you know, if my index fund VTI goes up, should I sell it? I'm not selling. Not at this state. Not at 45. I'm not going to sell it. No. Right.
Absolutely. No, that's I think we can go back, and all of our grandparents, for the most part, will tell you, if they're still here, I own this house. This house has generated the vast majority of my net worth. And this is actually one of the major things that I'm retiring based off of, right? Typically, I'll have a house and I'll have a pension. And that's just literally a whole entire generation that's how they built their wealth there. Yeah, that makes total sense there. And then one thing I want to ask you about before we transition to our last segment here, rule number 5, right? Talking about the right people that we want to listen to. Can we talk a little bit about getting that feedback? Because of course, as we go forward in the future, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to bump our heads, and we're going to, go back with our tails tucked in between our legs, and we're going to need some guidance there. Can you talk to us a little bit about we're talking about the future and how we should approach feedback from those people, and really like a real practical way of doing that?
I don't have all the answers, but this is what I know for sure that has been worked for me in my personal experience is this. When I was suffering and not hitting my goals, one of the things I would do is I was taking the wrong advice from the wrong people. And I had a mixed bag of advice. I think that one of the things I changed, and a lot of my mentors, I can't take credit for almost any of these rules. I've maybe made them more simple to understand, but none of them come from me, obviously, right? So I would say that one of the ways to do this with the people who love you, you pay, regulate your industry, and are where you want to be, is you want to be super cognizant of the state that you're in, because you are more receptive to receive information. So what I mean by that is this: a lot of people who suffer a lot in this life, one thing that you notice is that what is the reason that they're talking to so many different people about their problem? And the reason is because they ruminate in the problem, because it's the top of their mind. It's very warm and cozy and comfortable. They get relief discussing the challenge. This is problematic because it makes the problem worse. It's almost as if they become deaf to the advice because they're really more interested in sharing the burden of the problem. Right. I have found that people who suffer in this way, they tend to like become totally immersed in the problem. It spills over into every category of their life. So it's top of mind and tip of tongue, right? So they're constantly discussing it with everyone they meet. Right. I think that what tends to happen is the shift of when you really care about who you're taking advice from. Right. Is that now that you're more selective, you're actually trying to solve the problem. So you're more receptive to the advice, and it's coming from a place that you can trust. Right. So I think one revels in the problem, even though they may not say that. And the other is actually using discipline and willpower and being congruent and trying to solve the problem. One is sitting in it, and they're not really moving. And the other one is progressing towards a solution. So I think the way you're receptive to it is just by making the change of having the discipline. I saw something the other day. You become a man when you realize no one's coming to save you, or something like that. And and I think that there's something to that. I think that you have to really understand that you have to be in some ways goal-oriented and wanting to solve it, not trying to ruminate in it. And I think that's the difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really easy to fall victim to because of the fact that from having those discussions, people get those serotonin hits the same way as if they actually solved the actual problem. And so that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. So that's something definitely to note and to think about for myself, even moving forward, just to make sure we stay out of those pitfalls there. So great stuff, man. Great advice. All right. So now, that was all wonderful conversation for segment 3. Now we're going to go into our fourth and final segment, the 5-minute flow state segment. And in this actual segment, it's all about us letting our hair down and just kind of talking about whatever you want to talk about with respect to interest and things personally, right? So for the first question, I'd like to ask you, since we've talked about a lot of different books, you've gone through a lot of books, actually, I've read as well. But then there's been a bunch that I haven't, and I will be doing my at least 8 pages a day there, which really is 16.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, right. And so out of all of these books, can you tell us, I would say, your top 2 to 3 favorites?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Absolutely. Okay. I can definitely tell you that. These books will change your life. Oh, there's so many. First of all, let me say this, if it's okay. Anybody, there's nothing for sale. Anybody who wants, I always have 21 books that are the essential books that every entrepreneur should read every year. You will find that it's not how many books you read, it's how many times you reread the same books that ultimately makes the biggest impact. And if anybody wants that list, it's www.coachinginc.com/21 books. And I'm constantly updating that list. As a matter of fact, I just added 3 books to it, and I had to take 3 off because I'm really committed to the 21. But these are the quintessential game changers. The books that I would say had the most impact in order, and I will say also, just as a Christian, it is the Bible for sure, is one of the biggest ones. But beyond that, in business books, here's what I would say. Number 1, I went to a conference in Atlanta. I was so broke, my brother had to pay for me to go. It was a Sean Terry conference. People think I make this up. Or not that I make it up, but like, you really weren't that broke. I was absolutely that broke. And that book that I had 3 people recommended to me over a 24-hour period, 2 the night before, and then 1 in the morning. And they were all different people. It was amazing. It was just serendipitous as this happened. But they recommended the book called The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines. And I always have that book here. It's amazing that I get to meet all these authors. Some of them, not
That's
Edwin,
cool.
but some of them I can. This is she gave me this one, and this is the note I have in it from her. But
Awesome.
That book to me is a game changer because there was a lot of work I had to do. It's a super easy book. You could read it even if you're a slow reader. It's so easy to read. I'll let that book just speak for itself. If you want to have a big shift, I would read that book. That book,
Okay.
if you're really stuck, especially if you're at rock bottom. Rock bottom could be the strongest of foundations, and you could build something brilliant at rock bottom, but there's also a trap door at rock bottom, and you got to be careful. So if you need something right now to make an impact that you could implement today, I would read that book.
Awesome.
Second book, and this I give to all my clients, and this is the just most wonderful book. And Scott Alexander, who I now know and I've met multiple times and is a sweetheart. And this is a book that Dave Ramsey makes his new employees read. It's called Rhinoceros Success by Scott Alexander. I always have a copy. I'm always giving out a copy. This little tiny thin book, you don't even have to rip this book up because this book you could read in an instant. This book will change your life. This book is every business book ever written condensed down into a few pages of what to do. It has specificity. Wow. Yeah, you could immediately implement it. And again, I'm not going to give the tips. If you want, like I said before, there's no such thing as a lack of motivation. There is only the wanting of one thing more than another. Right. And if you really want to make a change in your life right now, and you want that badly enough, I would read this book.
Awesome.
The other book, oh my goodness gracious, if I had to tie it down to one more, as a real estate investor, of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I would say maybe that the book where I met Robert was The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. That was a big one. I'm looking at all my books. The best book for a beginner, I would say, one that made the War of Art is good and The Dip is good. I'd have a toss-up between those two. Either The Dip by Seth Godin or The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which is just a wonderful book. It talks about how amateurs show up when they're inspired, and professionals show up and then inspiration shows up. And
nice.
Yeah, it's about just doing it, just getting it done. And,
right.
Your readers your listeners, you guys, anyone listening to this, you'll love The War of Art. It's one of my all-time favorite books of all time. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, another one. That's
a good one. Yeah. That's a really good one. Yeah, absolutely. Because you've been doing that for years, you just have so much like a repository of knowledge from all these different books. And really they become frameworks in your life. That's what I kind of see happening, right? And you made these 88 rules, and these 88 rules they're really frameworks because that rule can expand to do so much. Just like even as we talk about this, like all these different rules are coming in my head. You're mentioning something and there's like 10 rules that apply immediately, right? So this is everyone, you can see this. This is him doing this for, decade plus 2 decades of reading and getting all this knowledge. But he also gave you actionable things you can do now and see immediate progress. That's just wonderful. And, we really appreciate having you and talking about these things. Now, I do have a question for you, though. Changing gears just a little bit.
Okay. If
you hadn't pursued a career in real estate or business, what alternative path would you have taken?
Oh, brother, that's so easy. Can I tell you, every entrepreneur, so many entrepreneurs, they make sports analogies. Guys, I'm right now. This is my most controversial position, which I'm 45. I don't care. I'll take the controversy. Sports. Forget sports. It has nothing to do with business. I remember, I'm not a big sports guy, right? But I remember that watching the New England Patriots, one of my buddies, and he kept saying this guy, the coach, and I'm like, I don't know, that quarterback named Brady is pretty good. Are you sure it's all about how, they would say, oh, this guy comes in early at like 5:00 in the morning. He teaches all about, defense is the name of the game. And they were winning every championship. And then of course we find out later it was all Brady, right? I think there aren't very many sports analogies that are metaphors to be used in business. I know a lot of people argue with me, right? Because they're like, no, you don't understand. It's how many shots you take, right? Michael Jordan. But let me tell you one thing that's not arguable, whether you argue with that or not, gardening. Every entrepreneur should have a garden. The best people have gardens. I just watched, I just happened to watch this, and of course she's going to have one, but I just watched a Netflix documentary everybody should watch about Martha Stewart and her garden.
Right.
What a phenomenal human being, just phenomenal in almost every way, at least certainly in business. She had a lot of problems and drawbacks, but the way she approaches business is really something. But I would say gardening, farming, I love it. I think if you can grow a tomato and a zucchini and some romaine lettuce and make a salad, and then fruit tree. Oh, I love fruit trees. I have so many fruit trees. I have so many analogies. Do you know why I can go on vacation and my garden produces fruit and vegetables without me? Because I have an automatic watering system. How many analogies can you make between the automatic watering system that I have in my garden and business, right? Or the fact that the other day, right behind me, I can't turn this around, but I have there's about an 8-inch mango tree it's about maybe 10 inches, and it's hanging upside down on my wall, drying out. It's been there forever. And why? Because I was so excited because I'm a gardener, right? So we get excited about silly things like seeds and when we eat a piece of fruit. And I live in beautiful Florida where everything grows. So I planted a beautiful mango tree and it started to grow, and it was in the wrong pot, in the wrong bed. It was going to get too big. It was going to block the sun. So even if it did well, it was in my sugarcane gardening bed. You know what I did? I cut it out and I reminded myself that distractions make money and they feel good. And I love that mango tree, but I had to have, and I know it sounds silly, but it's so true to business. I had to cut it. And it reminds me now, every time I get a phone call from somebody who says, "Oh, Tom, this really big guy named, he wants you to buy all the material from this other coach and like repurpose it and put it." It's no, it's a distraction.
Yeah,
and I look at that mango tree. So gardening would be where I'm at. I love it. It's the best. Yeah. All my best mentors are gardeners. They have massive fruit orchards. They have rows and rows of grapes that they grow, different sorts of grapes. And we have a place up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I love it. Right. Gardening for sure. Right. Yeah. I'll probably end up doing that eventually.
Yeah. It's like that, it alleviates shiny thing syndrome, right? Basically being able to sit there and commit to that and actually go through that process. And then, like you said, when you cut that tree down, it allows you to focus your effort where it needed to be. As we think about it, we have limited resources as entrepreneurs. And what that does is it makes you think in the most effective and most efficient way possible there. So yeah, so it just so many of these laws and these rules that you're telling us, it just, you can see them rearing their heads all over the place.
And it's your garden. It's yours. You build it the way you want it, the way you and your family walk outside and walk through it. And what does it produce? Is it fruits or vegetables or flowers? Like, that's up to you. That's how life is. It's your garden and the way you take care of it and how comfortable it is to walk through and how you feel in it and how other people feel in it and its abundance and its ability to produce enough for you to do the things that you want to do. There is life in that garden, and it's very applicable to business. It's very similar. The way a guy or a girl treats their garden is the same way they're going to treat their business. And I know it sounds silly, but I've walked through amazing gardens with amazing entrepreneurs. Of course, I see what I want to see, right? Like everybody else. But I love it. I think it's really phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another question for you about kind of all the different things we've been talking about and your experiences. I want to hear a memorable experience, like maybe the top most memorable experience throughout your middle to early history that has really impacted you the most, or has been the most meaningful, or was like the biggest turning point that you would say was pivotal in your life that you think about all the time. And so a lot of people, it'll be something that happened in college, or if they didn't go to college, it'd be something that happened when they were in the military, for example, or if they were a tradesman when they were doing that trade before they became a business owner. So out of all your experiences in your career and in your history, what would be the most pivotal thing that you can think of that comes to mind?
It would be certainly the first deal I ever did.
Okay.
I mean, that was for me, that was the moment where my whole entire worldview shifted. And I realized the possibility of what was before me was that first real estate deal I did. That was where I really understood that, okay, this is possible. I remember it. I remember every single detail of it. It's the only deal, and I've done many, 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 many deals now. I can't even recall, but for me, it was that first deal. And I went there with a real estate agent, and we were both talking to the homeowner, and the homeowner said, excused the agent and said, "Hey, listen, I don't want to list it. I don't want to do showings. It was a funny story actually. Her husband had just passed, and she said, I have a boyfriend in South Carolina, and I am going to go. I want to be with my boyfriend." And she was leaving the state, and she was like, "I don't want to do showings. I don't want to do a listing. I don't want to negotiate the price. I want to sell it right now." And because the agent had said, well, he's going to do this, and he's going to not, he was trying to fight for the deal, and fine, there's no problem with the agent. But I remember thinking like, oh, there is a such thing as real estate investing. And there are really legitimate reasons why people want to sell quickly for a discount. They want speed and convenience. And I was like, I can do this. And I remember like, oh man, I could cry about it, thinking about it. Like I remember, because before that, my wife was so, Julie, who's such a great wife. And can I give you one of the secrets to life in business, guys and girls? You darn well better have a spouse who supports you and is there for you. If you are married or in a serious relationship or have a partner or whatever it is, that person better be your biggest cheerleader and rooting for you, because I am on now the other side of coaching entrepreneurs. And when spouse or fiance or partner is against you and doesn't like this idea and thinks it's risky, and they don't want you, they don't encourage you, they think you should stay the traditional route in whatever you do, that will destroy an entrepreneur. And one of the greatest things I have is Julie, because that, I'm blessed to go on this journey with this Julie, because she's so supportive. But I remember what a sense of relief. She was just weeks before that. Literally, I came home and she was crying because she didn't know whether she should pay the mortgage or go. She didn't think she should go grocery shopping because we wouldn't have had enough. We were like, we only had exactly how much the mortgage was, and there was no money coming in. And she didn't want to buy the groceries so she was crying in the bathroom.
Wow.
And I remember that first deal, and I only made $2,000, and I did everything wrong, everything. I didn't know anything I was doing, which is such a testament to my attitude to approaching this. And I also, can I say one other thing about that is that I don't know how much, okay. I just want to say this too. A lot of people look at me now and they're like, oh, Tom, of course he could do it. He's so smart. And I always joke around, but I'm not that smart. I really am not. I barely graduated high school. I had an untimed SAT and I still got only a 990 on it. I didn't even break 1,000. Every college I applied to, I only went to Arkansas because it was the only college that actually accepted my application. It was a small Christian college at the time. Now it's bigger. But, and then I didn't finish, and I had to start right away. The first semester, Julie and I were out because we got pregnant with Logan. I had never read a book until I was like 30. I always tested poorly on every test. So if I can do this, anybody can do this. But that first deal, it was like, man, it was so amazing, because I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, and then I just did it and did it and did it again and again and again and again and again and again. And I just kept going. And I started with mobile homes, and then in single family houses, and then the deals would get bigger. And that was a shift. It's just belief in myself. Everything else was just like make believe before that. That was amazing.
Right. Yeah. That first deal I don't know what it is about that first deal, but it's like, I think Brent says this, it's like this elusive unicorn that you almost don't even believe it's there and it can happen, but you push through it and it's the biggest epiphany. And I have to agree that first deal for me, the first wholesale deal for me was game changing, just to see, a 5-figure check. Hand it to me. I had never gotten a 5-figure check for anything in my life.
Amazing.
It is. It really is. And that goes for your first business deal, your first wholesale deal, your first big sale. There's all these different ways that you can experience this, right? And so we really want to just encourage people to push through that first deal, push through that first experience, and you'll see on the other side there's a massive shift mentally now. And so I would have never gotten to that first deal if it literally wasn't for you, and so I appreciate that, right? So now a question that I do have for you, because you brought up, for example, that Pace Morby is going to be he's going to be doing one of your live calls tomorrow. I'm actually one of his sub 2 students as well. That's how I brought my first few properties. So you can see these mentors and this help, and this advice, like he says, it really works and is very impactful. And I would even say I'm not one of the people who've done the best out of the groups to do this. I'm probably mediocre when it comes to actually implementing these things. So anyone can do these things. Now, with respects to mentors, who would you say has been the most significant impact and mentor in your life thus far?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I have to go to two people. One of them is my older brother, Todd Toback. So, and I know anybody who's wondering, Todd is my stepbrother. We, his dad and my mom got married when we were in 4th and 5th grade. He's out in San Diego, California, and he knows wholesaling in and out, and he still wholesales today. I stopped a long time ago, but he's been doing it for years and years. He still does, and he's amazing at it. And if it wasn't for him pulling me into wholesaling, whining and kicking and screaming and complaining the whole time like a little baby, I would not have done my first deal, right? I would go, San Diego's so big and my town's so small, and you have so many houses, and there's only a few houses here, and the houses you have over there are so expensive, and these houses are not. Right? So he was like, "Shut up, do what I tell you to do." Yep. So, Todd, and he's still, my older brother, but we're still like, not only today, I talk to him every day. I'm sure he's called me once or twice since I've been on this podcast. And then Robert Kiyosaki for sure, because Robert gave me clarity in business. So Robert gave me connections and a network of people. I really understood a lot about spending time with Robert. Was probably that, Todd took me to one level, and then Robert took me to a whole different level, and my network increased. Just like one small example was I got to meet some of the amazing people at Agora. Agora, nobody even really knows. It's one of the most successful companies of all time. And I never got a chance to meet the owner, Bill Bonner, but I did have a chance to spend some time with some of his team. And the advice that they gave me, the instruction, was so game changing. I mean, I didn't even understand what I was doing in business before they came along. And so you feel so silly, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm doing great, right? And then they say, they're like, well, like, you're doing great, right? But let me give you a little more help. So I would say those two men, right? Todd certainly, and Robert, who unfortunately I don't spend time with anymore. I see Kim, his ex-wife, now occasionally or wife or ex-wife, or I'm not sure what's public or not public, but I do see Kim at some masterminds occasionally. But the time I spent with Robert was amazing, and I learned how to. He gave me his book, but he gave me, and by the way, again, of course, Robert is a humongous reader. That's like, and I remember. He taught me the system that I use, these color-coded things, before I started ripping books up. So, this came, keeping like, for instance, like keeping these notepads, books with the sticky system in it, and then labeling each one. This is how you really master. Again, one of the rules, right? It's not how many books you read; it's how many times you reread the same books. It's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's good. And I don't know if everyone noticed, but he held up the E-Myth Revisited. That's another very big, impactful book. It teaches you how to basically systemize things and think like a person who's systemizing things. So you can do that from day one, and you can have a business that operates more like a McDonald's as opposed to operating like a job that you just do on a daily basis to get paid. So awesome. That's a really good book. Really good insight there. I do have another question for you. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan. I'm always been, even when I struggled in school, I've always been a huge fan of history. I love our 16th president elected in 1861. I won't say who it is. You guys should have to look that up so that you can thank me later. So you'll all know who his name. It was Abraham Lincoln. So a huge fan. But I would say Teddy Roosevelt, and he wrote something called The Man in the Arena. It is a phenomenal little short story about the man in the arena who's actually he's not in the stands as a critic, criticizing the man in the arena, but he's actually in there taking the blows and getting back up. And it's an amazing, every entrepreneur should read The Man in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt. I would love to find out what some of the meaning was, because I have some questions about it, but it's a phenomenal essay that, it's very short. Everyone can read. Brene Brown, if you're familiar with her, she wrote a book called Dare to Lead. And she talks a lot about the word shame and what it means and how it affects entrepreneurs and other people and leaders. Brene Brown is somebody worth reading, but she has it memorized. I saw her. It was funny because I didn't know she liked this story, this essay also, but you find out a lot of entrepreneurs do. I would love to interview him about that, and just that, a whole bunch of stuff about him. But yeah, I would say probably him or one of the other presidents. I love, if you've seen Hamilton, the play, phenomenal. Have you seen Hamilton?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I love it. One of my favorite. Good. My daughter has my daughter Lacey, my 16-year-old, she has the whole entire play. I mean, literally almost completely memorized. And that's funny. That. You can put on any film, she goes every word. One of my proudest moments as a dad was when my daughter Lacey, I have 5 kids, but Lacey's the most like me. So it was funny. She dressed up in a school play as Alexander Hamilton and gave a presentation. I'm so in love with my kids. It's so awesome. But yeah, I would say probably one of the presidents or founding fathers for sure. That would be in my list.
Awesome. So another question, what's a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Fun fact about me that most people, I love building terrariums. I spend hours doing this. Hours. Huh. Yeah, it's the most ridiculous thing. It's just so common. So I like closed terrariums, meaning like you have a little glass enclosure that comes with a lid. And we, if you walk throughout my house in different spots where my wife will let me, we have them like hidden in little corners where to see how long life will last inside of one of these closed terrariums.
That's cool.
From the lake behind my house. So that and what else? It's funny. I'm pretty. I think what a lot of people would think of, I think the things that I love at 45 are different from the things I love at 25, but it served me really well to change some of my habits. And I'll tell you a little thing that's actually interesting that my mentors told me. I don't drink, not because I've ever had an issue with drinking, but I just don't like it. But I'll tell you something interesting that I do. That is whenever I go to a conference or a big mastermind where it's going to be a lot of people, I call ahead and I learned this from a mentor. I call ahead and I ask to see if they have non-alcoholic beer, and I put it in a clear cup, and that's what I carry around and drink. And I will tell you guys, instead of going up, because you want to build rapport with everybody, instead of going up and explaining 1,500 times that you don't drink, but you're not an alcoholic and instead just drink non-alcoholic beer in the lobby, and you'll maintain your composure, and you won't be, getting drunk while you're hanging out with everybody, and you'll have a huge advantage. So there's a little trick and something that not a lot of people know that I do publicly.
That's a really good trick. My father actually doesn't drink, and he was a naval officer, and that's literally what he did all over the world. He'd always he would walk in there and ask for like a club soda with a lime and an extra straw looking like a cocktail, or like a non-alcoholic beer. Yep. And that's one of the things he says has allowed him to elevate in his career a lot faster than his peers. So that's a really good one. It's applicable to all facets of life. I love it. Here's another one for you. How do you maintain work-life balance amidst your various professional commitments and businesses?
Yeah. So there is no balance. Balance will cause all kinds of havoc and suffering. There's no such thing as balance. Balance is impossible. It is some kind of a weird word that came into this industry, into entrepreneurship some time ago, and it doesn't exist. If you move from one seat to another, you have to get up from the other seat and move to the other. What you can have, though, is harmony. Harmony is more like what Jim Rohn teaches us, where there are seasons to things. And I think that it's entirely appropriate for someone like me to dedicate a season of his life to clients or to business. I think it's entirely appropriate to say, right now, guys, Dad is trying to help protect and grow the family, and I am going to be dedicated to something. So it's going to be important. One thing I've learned in life is that there is no time management. There is only priority management. If I want to know what's important to you, I don't need to listen to one word that comes out of your mouth. All I need to do is go back to the last 6 months and see where you put your time, money, and attention, because that will tell me what your priorities are. And I think that it is appropriate for you to be focusing on certain things at certain seasons. I think you have to earn the right to have the luxury to take things off. You have a job to protect and grow a community or a family or the people you love and care about. And so I never seek balance. I seek harmony. I make sure that all of these things are working towards the good of different things: faith, family, friends, fun, finance, fitness is on there, but it's all the way on the back somewhere. It's one day it'll come to the front, but not today. Maybe a bad doctor's report, God forbid. But that's what I would say, is that you just have to seek harmony in things and understand that it is good. And the people around you need to know that too, that it is good and honest and wholesome and appropriate to prioritize certain things at different stages in your life. And I think that when you have those open and honest conversations about prioritization and saying like, hey, this is how dad or how your husband, or wife or whoever you are, right? This is how I express my love, is by prioritizing this so that I can take care of you. I think that is appropriate. I'm not saying you should miss baseball games and all of that, but I do think that one of the people because I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it, but one of the people who does a really good job of explaining that is Daniel Lapin and he talks about specialization. And there's a book that he wrote. One is called Thou Shalt Prosper, which is phenomenal. The other one is Business Secrets from the Bible. And anybody who's struggling with trying to figure out balance and failing, you're failing because balance is impossible. And he does a really good job of explaining specialization in that book, Business Secrets from the Bible.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll check that one out. I have seen the book, but I haven't read that personally. And now that I have your recommendation, I'll be looking at that. Awesome. And so final two questions here as we wrap up this episode here and segment number 4. So what's your favorite travel destination and what do you enjoy about it the most?
So what's my favorite travel destination? I know sometimes it's easier to start with what you don't like. I don't like the beach. I'm not a beach guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not a camping guy. That is for sure. I will readily admit that I like 5-star service all the way. I do not want to be on a camping. There's no tents or camping. My boys already know. You want to go chop firewood, go have a good time, go bring that. But I don't know if I have a favorite location. If I'm with my family and we've been all over many, many, many places. We're very blessed, but I like spending time with friends and family. And if I'm in, with friends and family, either in North Carolina or other parts of Florida or in California or Colorado or overseas, I think it's the people that make the destination, right? And but yeah, I don't really have one particular place. Sometimes I like to go to the mountains. We have a beautiful place in the mountains, which actually all of my private clients get to use, which is awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's cool. So we go there quite a bit, but we also like other locations. I think it's who you're with. That's what really makes a big difference for me.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for telling us a little bit about that. I mean, we talked about things going in seasons and work-life balance not really being a thing, but you still have to spend that time with the family, get that R&R to keep your batteries charged, and have a place to just get away and basically clear your mind and things of that nature. And so that's obviously what you do there. So now this brings us to our last and final question.
Let's do it.
Can you share a personal mantra or a quote that you live by?
I'll give you a good one. This is what I have. You ready? It goes like this.
Yep.
Bam! And one of the things I learned early on was a little NLP trick, and you can use it on sales calls. You could use it in your marketing, but it's called pattern interruption. I saw Tony Robbins use this masterfully once. There was a young man who was at one of his conferences, and he was very distraught, and he told Tony that he had gotten up to speak. You could see that he was very visibly upset, and he started to talk about the possibility of just ending it all. Tony jumped off the stage and walked up to the man. Of course, he's this huge, big character, right, with these huge hands and all this stuff. And as the man was talking and crying, Tony said, "Well, it's not because of those red shoes, is it? Is that why?" And the guy said, "What?" And he shook his head. And Tony said, "Well, because of those. Is that why? Because if I was wearing those red shoes, I'd end it all today too." And that pattern interruption on a sales call, a polite interruption, what it does is it snaps people out of it, and it changes the way they think. And it changes the whole context of the whole entire scenario, and it stops people from going down one road. I'll do this all the time if we're on a sales call, or when I was doing sales and I was doing everything I was doing, I would just politely interrupt. And they were talking, and I would say, Oh, hold on. Yeah. Wait, what did you say? I'm sorry. Someone was just talking. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know we're talking about how you want to sell a house. Are you even selling a house? I forgot why I'm calling you. And you just redirect that way. And once you get good at pattern interruption, I think it really can shorten the length of a call. It can shorten the length of an interaction, and it can make it more meaningful. So one of my favorite terms, I like BAM. I picked it up because I went to that Sean Terry conference and he kept saying boom. And I was with my buddy and he's like, you need something too if you're going to do stuff like that. I said, I'm going to say BAM, because at that time, Emeril Lagasse on the Food Channel was popular, and he would add a spice and he'd say, BAM. And I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to steal BAM from him. So that's my favorite, I guess. That's at least the one that I use the most often, I would say, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I use boom. That's my thing.
There you go.
I don't even know where it came from, but that's just kind of what started happening.
Yeah.
So cool. I'm on the right track then. Now that I know that you're utilizing that, and in your emails, I see BAM and things like that. And then I also noticed in your social media profile, I just recently noticed that. I think that's really cool. So awesome. Well, thank you for explaining all that. NLP, something that everyone should definitely go home and learn about, and make sure to take these lessons, internalize them, and take massive action. So this wraps up our final segment. I want to start out by saying thank you for joining the podcast today, Tom. It has been absolutely wonderful. Deeply appreciated. Thank you for changing my life and all the people around you, even my mentors' lives. They will say that you were a person who changed their life. Yeah, paying it forward. We all appreciate you. And to all the viewers out there, remember to like and subscribe so you'll be notified immediately the next time we drop an episode. And that concludes our episode today. Thanks again. Boom.
Bam.